dropping off for me. I don't know if it's
Just because you know the back door.
What is that? No, like that's
What?
big plane. What?
Oh yeah. What? Ever since they put that, as I say, Mike's nothing's on right. Ever since they put that article out, I swear they changed the approach pattern, and it now comes right over my house, even more so.
Really?
I don't mind it. I think it's totally cool. In fact, I even said that to my wife because it they legit come through my front yard. They used to just take off and out, but now they're coming in landing wise too. It's like, okay,
Wow.
yeah.
Thank you. Well, I'd like to welcome everybody out. This is the Roy City Council meeting for December 5th, 2023. Time is now 5:30 p.m. I want to recognize that we do have Councilmember Ann Jackson with us tonight, Councilmember Wilson, Councilmember Joe Paul, Councilmember Randy Scadden, and Councilmember Sophie Paul, and we've got our youth council member. Could you introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, I'm Sally Nyquist, and I'm great to be here.
Perfect, thank you. Thanks for joining us. We've asked Councilmember Diane Wilson if she would go ahead and lead us in a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance. Diane?
Would you please join us in a moment of silence? Thank you. Would you please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Diane. Okay, Council, we have some consent items, specifically a financial statement for October, and we do have a number of meeting minutes to include the special work session minutes. Any comments, questions, or concerns about the agenda items?
There are a few changes that I asked, Brittany, I texted those to you. Did they come through? Okay, so that's what my comments.
Perfect. Any others?
I had a few corrections as well, so
Okay.
they're already to Brittany.
Looks like you got 3 of ours. I sent you yours, mine, and okay, so you've got some to work. Thank you. Without any other comments or questions, do I have a motion to approve the consent items with the corrections been provided?
I move that we approve the consent items with corrections as noted.
Thank you, Diane. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Sophie, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the consent items are approved. This is our public comment period. In the public comment period, you can bring up anything you'd like to talk about. Well, we only ask that you put your name and address. Just let us have that for the record. I will indicate to you we're going to have 2 public comment periods. This one, which you can certainly bring up anything you'd like. And the next one we're going to have is going to deal specifically with the 4400 proposal that deals with speed limits. So you can, if you're here and you'd like to make comments on that, we do have an area we're going to allow public comment specifically to the 4400. But other than that, this is a public comment period. Please step up to the mic, give us your name and address. Thank you.
I'm Dave Young. I live at 4870 South, 2575 West here in Roy. Kind of feel like Ben Kingsley's character in Jules. If you haven't seen the movie, you may get a laugh out of it. If you have seen the movie, you'll understand. I have a proposal that might cost some money. Mm-hmm. It might include a study, and it may be a no-go. So it's up to you guys. I learned about this November 7th, talked to council member Ann Jackson. She said to bring it here tonight. They tore out the railroad line that goes from the Ogden Rail Yard to Hill Air Force Base.
That's correct.
And I've heard that they're going to make it into a walking path. Mm-hmm. But specifically for part of that where the line was is one-way street, northbound only. It's the light green. It runs behind Walgreens, the Exxon, and there's So Delicious on the other side. I am proposing that we widen that back to two-way traffic, both directions, like it was back in the 60s and 70s and possibly the 80s before somebody put in curb and gutter and said the train can't run over that. So they made it one way from the entrance into the Exxon. It's two-way into Exxon, but only one way north. I'm proposing that because of construction on 5600 to get into Walgreens, Exxon, and So Delicious while they got the traffic going. It's really hard to make a left-hand turn now. It's going to get even worse. So if you're going southbound and you need to make a left-hand turn into those businesses, it's a no-go. So you either go all the way down to 5700, make a U-turn in the Ocean Mart parking lot, come back out 5700, down 1900 to turn into the Exxon or the Walgreens. As far as So Delicious during, I call it Hillfield 30, which is rush hour, you can't get in. And if you are in there, you can only go west. So I propose that we put that light green area as two-way traffic, as a possibility of making an entrance to So Delicious there to keep them in business during the construction period, and it'll help out the Exxon, the Walgreens, and the other businesses in that, what used to be the old lumber yard, the cinder block buildings there that Joe's Car Connection is next to. So there's probably going to have to be a traffic study. You'll probably have to get rid of, or get hold of whoever owns the railroad right-of-way, which I believe it was Hill Air Force Base, to see if it can be permanently or temporarily repaved or just hard road bed gravelled to make it a two-way street again.
Okay.
Okay?
Who owns that street?
As I say, because is that even city maintained? I didn't think it was. I thought,
That's a good question.
It does have curb and gutter on both sides.
yeah.
But-
Do we maintain it? As I say, Brandon would know. All I
Yeah.
know is it drives my wife nuts when I use that my secret way to get, so I don't have to deal with
Yeah.
1900s.
See, and you can turn on 5400
Yeah.
and go in
Yep.
if we make it two-way traffic again, which will make it so much better for those three businesses and possibly for Joe's Car Connection, because there is a gate there.
Okay. Well, we certainly can look at it. I will indicate to you, the owners of the old track
Yeah,
is actually owned by UDOT now.
okay,
They purchased it recently from Union Pacific.
okay.
And the plan would be is to put a 6.4 mile trail, walking trail. At least at this moment, it's an active transportation corridor. There has been talk, to be honest with you, to try to find some people mover to move through there, but right now it's an active transportation. And the plan is to connect then along the west side of Hill Air Force Base all the way to Ogden.
Yeah,
And then the plan, Layton is taking an effort to do from the Clearfield Canal to try to connect to that, to run it all the way into Layton itself. So not sure where all that's going to mature out to, but certainly that's the owner of the program today in terms of that rail track.
okay.
But thanks for that. The
Yeah.
gentleman right to your right is Brody.
Yeah.
He's the community director.
And I made 10 copies.
Oh, if
It's
you'd like to
similarly-
hand that to Matt, then we can, he can pass those to us, we can certainly look at that. Okay?
Okay. So thanks for your time.
Thank
And
you.
as Ben Kingsley said at the end of his third trip to city council, a UFO crashed in my backyard, took out my azaleas and blew up or damaged my bird bath.
Obviously, we need to see the show.
You need to see the movie. You can rent it from the library. It came out in August and I totally missed it. But it is funny, you'll love it.
Thank you.
Thanks, David.
Okay. Anybody else? Hi, Kevin. Name and address.
I am Kevin Homer. I live at 5398 South, 4000 West here in Roy. Just got a couple of different things I wanted to bounce by you first, give my input on before we have the agenda items. And so on action item number 4, having to do with the transient room tax. Y'all know I don't really like the tax, but I think you're going to do it anyway, which is fine. You can do that. But there's one section in there that I wanted to make a comment on. Section 6-3-3D-6, it reads, use all revenues generated by the transient room tax and penalties, if any, may be used by the city for general fund purposes. I would propose that you at least discuss and consider amending that section to specify that 50% of that tax be allocated for emergency services and the other 50% to go to the general fund. The police and fire services seem to be impacted the most by providing services to all those kinds of hotel rooms and whatever. If we're gonna have that tax, I think it would be appropriate to give at least 50% to emergency services and the rest to the general fund. So at least to consider that. The other has to do with discussion item number 1, which is about yard sign ordinances. Man, there's a lot there. A whole lot of changes, a whole lot of adjustments. I just want to let you, I've read it all. I know what's in the packet. I know what the discussions that have been had various times about that. I like the changes that are in there. I took a look at the several pages of ordinances of other cities in the area, from Park City to Clearfield to American Fork, all over the place. I find that most of their ordinances are quite intrusive, bordering on tyrannical. And what I appreciate is that this group is not trying to go way far down that road. The proposals to the ordinance, I think, are appropriate. I would support what is in there, so thank you.
Okay, Kevin, thank you. Anybody else like to share a thought? Any topic? Okay. Hearing none and seeing none, we'll go ahead and move to the presentation. Thank you for public input. Under the presentations, we do have our fiscal year 2023 audit report. Ryan Child, okay, with the Child Richards CPA and advisors who did the audit, is going to share his thoughts on this particular audit. Ryan, thank you for joining us.
Thank
Please.
you. Thank you, Mayor and Council. It's good to be here and happy to be able to share a good report. The full bound report includes a number of sections: introductory, management's discussion and analysis, the financials, the footnotes, a statistical section. And the first thing that I'd like to go over, point out, if you'll turn to page 12 with me, is that Roy City for a number of years and as well as this last year has received a Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting from the Government Finance Officers Association, which is well above and beyond what is required by state code. So congratulations there. If you'll turn to page 14 with me, we have expressed an opinion on the financial statements that they are fairly stated and in accordance with accounting principles and supported with underlying documentation. Our opinion is that the financial statements are accurate. We've expressed an unmodified opinion. This letter explains the basis for our opinion, the scope of our work with auditing standards, and the responsibilities of management as well as ourselves as auditors to express this opinion on the financial statements. So that's a clean report. The next section is the management discussion and analysis, which is where Amber is able to provide a narrative to the financial balances and transactions and the major changes from the prior year. And then we go into the financial statements. And if you'll turn with me to page 34, this shows a balance sheet of the governmental funds, the first column being the general fund, which is where the city conducts ongoing operations that are not restricted or assigned to specific purposes elsewhere. So the majority of the activity takes place here in the general fund. At the end of the year, you can see at the top of this page, the first asset listed is cash at $8,339,000, which is up compared to the prior year by $2.2 million. This cash is not restricted by legislation or outside parties, so it is available for use as the city appropriates and determines. The next line in the general fund is restricted cash at $6,079,000, which is restricted for roads and public transit. Other assets that you'll see include accounts receivables, balances due from other governments such as the county and the state, and prepaid expenses, putting total assets in the general fund at $22.7 million, which is the first total on the left. If you'll go down, you can see liabilities in the general fund, including accounts payable, accrued wages, deposits, and advances, totaling just under $1.9 million. And then the next section are deferred inflows of resources. This is money that the city has or has the ability to claim a right on this money, but is not available for use until the current fiscal year we're in now for 2024. And the total of that money is $9.4 million. The two major players there being the unspent ARPA money at about $4.8 million, and the property taxes that were assessed and a lien was levied, but is not collected until about this time of this current year. The bottom section shows the fund balance, the difference between assets and liabilities. In non-spendable form, that's already invested in inventory or prepaid expenses, restricted for roads at $6,079,000. And then down at the bottom, you can see the portion that is unassigned at $4,871,000. The state code requires this fund balance to be below 35% of revenues. Its current balance is at 22% of revenues, which is right about where you want to be. Compared to the prior year, this unassigned fund balance increased by $160,000. Other governmental funds that the city has, you can see the next column over, are the redevelopment agency, which had cash just under $2.5 million, and capital improvements, which has cash just under $6.7 million. If you'll turn a couple pages over for me to page 36, we can see the changes in those balances represented by revenues and expenditures and transfers for the year. The general fund, you can see total revenues. This is the first subtotal in the first column at $24,711,000. The majority of which are taxes, property taxes, sales tax, and franchise tax, collectively which increased by about $1 million compared to the prior year. You can see the money coming in from paramedics, payments in lieu of taxes, and licenses and permits, $497,000. This is the one line that came down compared to the prior year. Building permits have slowed down, so it's down by about $130,000 compared to fiscal year 22. However, if you go a few rows below, you can see the interest income at $681,000, which is up by $600,000 compared to the prior year because of the change in interest rates. So they're currently at about 5% at the PTIF. Total revenues in the general fund increased by $2.5 million. And the expenditures, you can see, are categorized by function or program, with the general government at $3.7 million, public safety at $11.4, public works at $3, and the parks and recreation just under $3 million as well, putting the total expenditures in this fund at $21,299,000. If you go down to the fourth row from the bottom, you can see total other financing sources in the general fund at negative $2,048,000, of which the line just above, you can see that the money that was transferred out of the general fund and then earmarked in other funds. $2,375,000 was transferred out. The majority, I think if all, went to the capital improvements fund. The Net change in fund balance in the general fund, which is the third row from the bottom, was $1,362,000. The RDA fund at $135,000, and the capital improvements fund at $633,000. The capital improvements fund did expend $2.9 million on projects between improvements, equipment, and the purchase of vehicles. It puts your total fund balance for the governmental funds, which is on the bottom right corner, at $21,188,000. A couple rows over, a couple pages over, is a presentation of budget to actual in the general fund. And there are similar presentations of the other funds of the city, with the third column from the left being the actual expenditures and actual revenues, and the variance farthest to the right being the difference between budget and actual. You can see revenues in the general fund, where the actual was $24,711,000, which was about $4 million lower than budgeted. Of course, the major difference there you can see in intergovernmental revenue. This was a timing of the revenue recognition on the ARPA money. So I shared with you earlier that's a deferred inflow of resource and will be recognized as revenue when the eligible expenditures are incurred. If you go through the expenditures on the far right column, you'll notice both on this page and the next, all expenditures by department were constrained to their appropriations. So did an excellent job of keeping track of those costs through the year. If you'll go over to page 41, you can see the statement of net position in the proprietary funds, with the top line being cash in the water and sewer fund, the storm sewer and solid waste fund, at $3.2 million in water and sewer, 1.7 in storm sewer, and 4.3 million in the solid waste. Some major activity in the water and sewer fund were expenditures close to 2 million between improvements that were capitalized and put in service, and about 1.2 million in projects that were in process at the end of the year but not completed yet. The next page shows the liabilities for these funds. The major liability in the water and sewer fund, the first line you can see are accounts payable, just under 1.5 million, a lot of which were construction related. You can see the revenue bonds payable at 466,000, which is the balance due in this current fiscal year. And the remainder that's long-term is about 4 rows down at 1,962,000. Altogether, the city as a whole and individually throughout these funds are well managed. The accounting was excellent, and we don't have any findings to report this evening. So any comments or questions for me?
Council, any questions for Ryan relative to the audit?
I appreciate you going over those specifics and details. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions?
Just great job, Amber and Matt and everybody that worked on this budget. And Roy City's in great shape, and our money is managed very well.
That's a great feat to not have any findings. So great job. Great job.
Again, Amber, well done. Okay. I know it takes a team to make it happen, but I will tell you, it starts with the leadership, and it's the leadership, okay, that drives the outcome. And you did a great job. Thank you. Thank you.
Did you jump up and do a dance?
Well, you can't. You should. That's
Okay. With that, council, then, do I have a motion then to approve the audit, the 2023 audit report as delivered?
So moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Joe and Randy, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that audit is approved. Amber, again, thank you. Well done, well done. Okay, we have some action items. Council, consideration resolution 23-27, a resolution requesting recertification of the Roy Weber Justice Court. Matt, I think you're going to talk this.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Before you, City Council, you have resolution, as the Mayor said, resolution 23-27. About every 4 years, the Administrative Office of the Courts comes to us and says that we have to recertify our court, our Justice Court here at Roy City. It's actually the Roy City and Weber Justice Court. Pretty easy process. It requires a couple of things. First, resolution by the City Council that is adopted. Second, opinion letter that you see in your council packets. And then Judge Nelson will have to do an affidavit, which he has completed. It's basically just a questionnaire. So this is just the last piece. We would like to get it to them. They asked that we get it to them before December 15th. Pretty easy process. We can either mail it or email it. So we're all ready to do this. This is just the last piece. So we would recommend your approval.
Council, any comments, question relative to the recertification?
No.
Okay, hearing none then, do I have a motion then to approve resolution 23-27, a resolution requesting recertification of the Roy Weber Justice Court?
So moved.
Thank you, Randy. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Sophie, thank you. Okay, this is a roll call vote. Brittany?
Councilmember Wilson,
Aye.
Councilmember Sophie Paul,
Aye.
Councilmember Joe Paul,
Aye.
Councilmember Jackson,
Aye.
Councilmember Scadden.
Aye.
Okay. That motion carries. Resolution 23-27 is approved. Thank you, Council. Consideration Resolution 23-28, a resolution approving the news publication agreement with Connects Publishing Company, and this is talking about our magazine. Matt, I think you're going to talk this one.
Yep. Thank you, Mayor, again. City Council, as you recall, we have discussed this in the past. I think it was in our last City Council meeting. Connection Magazine came to us and asked for a price increase. During the discussion, the City Council, we were requested to go back to Connection and see if we can do like a year-to-year agreement with them. This contract, we can terminate at the end of the year. We just require a 60-day notification. There's an automatic renewal of this contract for the next 5 years. There was an amendment to the contract that Brittany also sent out with the price increase. The total cost for that will be $3,008.50 a month. That will be 13,675 units being sent out. So I think the contract looks really good. If you read through it, it kind of tells you how they do it with the 7 to 8 pages of city content and how they get the advertisement. They said in the amendment, the total cost of their contract to send a publication out is 30 cents, and we are paying 22 cents of that. So 8 cents is being paid for by advertisers.
Okay.
Just wanted to present that information to the City Council for approval.
Thank you, Matt. Comments or questions relative to the magazine publication?
I think it's an important way to communicate with our residents, so I appreciate you going to the effort to check this out, have the options beforehand. I still think this is a good option, so thank you.
Okay, any other comments, questions?
I agree that we need to keep the Connection magazine. As I talk to people through all the things I've been dealing with, I asked all the people if they read that magazine, and 99% of them said yes, every month. So I think it was something that's really important for our residents.
Okay, Ann, thank you. Okay, then, with that then, do I have a motion then to approve Resolution 23-28, a resolution approving the news publication agreement with Connection Publishing Company?
So moved.
Thank you, Diane. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you, Ann. This is a roll call vote. Brittany?
Councilmember Joe Paul,
Aye.
Councilmember Jackson,
Aye.
Councilmember Wilson,
Aye.
Councilmember Scadden,
Aye.
Councilmember Sophie Paul.
Aye.
Okay, thank you, Council. That's approved. Resolution 23-28. Consideration of Resolution 23-29. This is a resolution approving an interlocal agreement between Roy City and the Weber County wherein the Weber County will accept waste transported to the transfer station. Matt, you're probably best because you've been working this personally. I certainly am aware of some of this, so if you'd like to lead the conversation.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Mayor. I am on a subways committee. Can you hear me? Is it too loud? Oh. I'm on a subways committee with Weber County. Some other city managers with other cities and mayors and things is also on that committee. We've been working this agreement, something that Weber County wanted us to do. It basically is a waste flow agreement that we guarantee a certain waste stream to the transfer station to maintain their contracts. As you can imagine, it is important that every city participates in that so they have that waste stream. If one city opts out, that waste stream is going to become more expensive for the other cities. And then also, it's important for Weber County to have this waste stream because they can enter into long-term contracts with these haulers to haul that waste out of the transfer station. So basically beneficial on each side. There's a 6-month opt-out. So if another city wants to opt out, we could choose to opt out as well, just a 6-month notice. This is only for the residential contracted waste. So this is not our recycled materials. This is not for like commercial or anything else that we do not contract, or even city waste. So if we're hauling cement or something, we don't have to haul it there. So we would recommend your approval. They would like this contract or this interlocal back to them to start it out the new year fresh. So.
Yep. Thank you, Matt. Comments or questions, council? Okay. Pretty self-explanatory. Thank you, Matt. Do I have a motion then to approve Resolution 23-29, a resolution approving the interlocal agreement between Roy City and Weber County?
So moved.
Thank you, Ann. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Sophie, thank you. Okay, this is a roll call vote. Brittany?
Councilmember Jackson.
Aye.
Councilmember Scadden.
Aye.
Councilmember Joe Paul.
Aye.
Councilmember Wilson.
Aye.
Councilmember Sophie Paul.
Aye.
Okay, thank you, council. The resolution 23-29 is approved. Excellent. Consideration of ordinance 23-14. Now, this ordinance has established a transit room tax, adopting relevant provisions of the Utah Sales and Use Tax Act and providing for collection and use of revenues. Brody, I think you're going to lead the conversation on this one.
Mayor, Council, thank you. I know we've talked about this a few times before, but based on our conversation we had at the work session, we brought this back before the council. It is the transient room tax, which is a 1% tax on the users of hotels and short-term rentals. I think it's important to note that this is not a tax on all the citizens of Roy. It's a revenue-generating tax on the users of essentially hotels and short-term rentals. As we've discussed before, we discussed in detail in the work session, Roy City is the only city in Weber County that has a hotel that doesn't have this. Quite frankly, staff's position is that it's a way to generate revenue without imposing additional property taxes. If there's any questions or concerns, I'm happy to address them. Other than that, I think we've talked about this one quite a bit.
Okay. Council, do you have any comments, questions relative to ordinance 23-14?
I did like the comment that was made by Kevin Homer, Mr. Homer, about allocating it. I brought that up once before and met some staunch resistance from other departments. I think the council needs to have the latitude to allocate that where it's needed. It might be public safety one year. It might be something else another. You know, they're impacting roads as much as they're impacting public safety. So I would say that on a yearly basis, we ought to look at where it's being allocated and make a decision that way versus earmarking it right today.
I would just say I agree wholeheartedly with that. Quite frankly, when the council passes the budget, you tell us where to spend money every year. And the difficulty, sorry, I'm putting my lawyer hat on for a minute, but when you codify something like that, you are making it permanent for forever. So to codify out the flexibility of where that money to go does not seem like a good idea to me. Quite frankly, none of us has any idea what will be needed in 2024 or 2027 or 2030. So I think it's a good idea to allocate it as the budget sees fit year to year.
Okay.
Well, I would propose, unless anybody has any other comments, consideration of ordinance 23-14, establishing a transient room tax, adopting relevant provisions of the State Sales and Use Tax Act, and providing for collections and use of revenues.
Okay, I assume there's no other comments before we take that motion? Okay, I have a motion then to approve ordinance 23-14. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
And, okay, thank you. This is a roll call vote as well. Brittany?
Councilmember Wilson,
Aye.
Councilmember Joe Paul,
Aye.
Councilmember Jackson,
Aye.
Councilmember Sophie Paul,
Aye.
Councilmember Scadden.
Aye.
Okay, thank you, council. Ordinance 23-14 is approved. Now we have an interesting one. We don't do this very often, okay? But council, we have the approval of the 2023 general election canvass. So Brittany, as the city recorder, turn it over to you. Make comments on it?
Yes, we have, sorry, hopefully you can hear me. I don't know if that, it says that it's on. So we'd have the canvassers report for the Roy City Council at large. We had a total number of votes cast in Roy City at 5,004 votes. The name of each candidate that appeared on the ballot was Benjamin Pearson, Joe K. Paul, Claude W. Payne, Jeremy A. Thompson, Brian K. Saxton, and Ann Jackson. We also had, so it lists each office that appears on the ballots. There are 3 seats for city council. Then we go into the number of votes for each candidate. Ann Jackson received 3,223 votes. Joe K. Paul received 2,428 votes. Brian K. Saxton received 2,227 votes. Benjamin Pearson received 1,916 votes. Jeremy A. Thompson received 1,904 votes. And Claude W. Payne received 1,050 votes. Again, the total number of ballots that were counted was 5,004. We also had 1 provisional ballot that was counted, and 62 ballots that were rejected. So we have the final statement certifying that the information contained in the report is accurate, and then I will pass that around for signatures.
Okay, any comments, questions before I go for the approval of this election? Okay, hearing none then, do I have a motion then to approve the 2023 general election canvass as reported?
So moved.
Okay, thank you, Joe. Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Sophie. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Okay, the canvass is approved. Brittany's going to send that by. We have to have your signatures on that document. That's the legal authority. So if you,
It has to match our signature on file. Or, they get rid of the
or you become
Okay.
one of the 64s that doesn't count.
You become one of the 64 rejected.
Yeah. That where you've been. And make sure you sign on your line.
Just give us a second. This is very important that we get this document signed, because once it's signed, it's now approved. Thank you, council. Let me just make a comment if I can. Elections can be hard. They certainly can be emotional. This one was handled very professionally. I think all the candidates stood on principles that they thought was important. They presented those. They certainly, I think, really kind of was very convincing and compelling on some of the things they thought were important. And I think, what I think I admired most about this one is the fact is that because the civility of the individuals saying is it was most important for them to basically not so much criticize their opponent in this campaign, but rather get their message out of how they want to make the change, what they think is important in the change, and what they want. And the public listening to that, cast their vote. But I want to tell you, it's not easy. Running for office is always hard. It can be sometimes a little difficult. But the professionalism is as I look at it, is oftentimes between the candidates. And I think the candidates, all of them, those who were in the primary as well as in the general election, did an incredible job to stay focused on message and did a really great job in the presentation of what they thought was important. So we are appreciative of it. It was well. Today it makes it official. The first meeting, I believe, is January 2nd, of 2024. We will immediately, take action to swear in those candidates again, for them to help us steer and direct the city. So again, congratulations to those who won the election. Well done. And I only make one last comment, and it's not always easy, but it's important. The people voted for you in large part because of what you told them you would do. Honor that. Honor that. If you think it's important, and you did, then honor what you committed to. Thanks. By the way, it's official. So we now have our new city council members sign and be ready for the 2nd of January to go into office, and we look forward to that. Okay, council, we have some discussion items. Let me just make sure I frame this. These are discussion items, so we're not intended to make any decisions here, but most important is give us direction of how you want to proceed. The first discussion item is going to be the yard signs, and there was an ordinance on that. We've asked Brody to start the conversation from his perspective, and then we'd just like to get your thoughts and comments relative to the yard sign. Brody?
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Okay, so I need to kind of bore everybody. Luckily, Mr. Childswood's here, so I won't be the most boring presenter tonight. But procedurally, how we discuss about this one, it was spoken in City Council to the city, that the Planning Commission needed to talk about the signs. We had discussion about what to do with the yard sale signs and also some of the political signs that came up, some of the ordinances regarding those. So Planning Commission did that. They went through the ordinances, compared them to other cities, to what they thought. They had good discussion about that, and the Planning Commission actually split it off. The Planning Commission is going to recommend some changes to the political sign ordinances. The reason that we're not talking about that is they did not recommend any changes to the yard sale portion of our ordinance. I say yard sale signs. It's Title 13, Section 4. It's not just yard sale signs, but it's the off-premise signs that we were talking about. They recommended to leave the ordinance alone. So where we're at tonight is the council can have discussion about these signs and what we want to do. If we want to do nothing, that's fine. The ordinance stays as it is. And then the Planning Commission will go and hold a public hearing for the political signs and then bring that back to the council. However, if the council, amongst your discussion, wants the Planning Commission to come up with some ideas to change the yard sale, what we're calling the yard sale signs, you guys need to give us directions for the Planning Commission to do that, because they'll need to hold a public hearing because it's a land use ordinance change. That's right. And then bring both items back to the city council. So again, sorry, that it's kind of interesting how that one works, but the fact that the Planning Commission is recommending no change to this one, they didn't hold the public hearing to bring it back to this body. So that's kind of where we're at procedurally. And other than that, I guess it's really a discussion of whether the Planning Commission got it right, or if the council wants to give us some direction as to what you want the ordinance to see, say, be, and we'll go work that and then bring it back after the appropriate public hearings.
Yeah, perfect. Council, let me just talk just a little bit, and then we can just have a brief discussion about it. To suggest that Roy City is not like most other municipalities, people like to put signs out, and particularly garage sale signs or yard signs, whatever that may be. The fact of the matter is, our ordinance is very specific on what they can and cannot do. So I'm going to frame it from this perspective. If you, as a resident of Roy City, wanted to have a yard sale, you can put a yard sale sign in your yard and no other location in Roy City. And let me repeat that. You certainly cannot put it on any public space. You can't put it on a parkway. You certainly cannot tie it to some pole. You can't put it on some electrical panel. I've seen them just about everywhere. You can't do that legally. And you cannot, even though you have permission with a resident in Roy City, you cannot, under the code, put it in that person's yard, even though that person's may be, and oftentimes is, private property. The law as it reads today says the only place you can post a yard sign in Roy City is in your yard. That's it. And so the challenge or the issue at hand is that if you are, as the Planning Commission suggests, if you're comfortable with the idea that we just don't do anything with yard sign ordinance as written, then I would suggest to you is, and I'm only going to make just a personal comment here, we now have an ordinance on the books that's literally unenforceable. I do not see anybody out there collecting all those signs, okay, every place I see them. I don't see them everywhere, but I certainly, in fact, do not see them. I mean, I do see them, and they're not enforced. And the question I've always said since I've been in office would be is, do we want to have ordinances on the books that are unenforceable, that we can't possibly enforce? Because it puts us in a very difficult position, in my opinion, is that if, in fact, code enforcement pulls a sign off this street, a person can honestly say, why didn't you pull the similar sign off that street? And we don't. We don't do it either. So we've got an interesting challenge. Now, in the paper I wrote you, and it was a suggestion that was made, and I think it's a reasonable suggestion, is this. I says, you have the choice. But I says, if we wanted to put something out there, and it was a great comment that was provided, we can say in our ordinance, signs for a short-term event shall be exempt from the provisions of this chapter. Such signs shall include notice of garage sales, lost and found notices, those, because it's all inclusive. Don't put your pet sign picture on a flagpole, because that is a sign under the law, which is illegal. But it says, such sign shall not be placed more than 24 hours before the event and shall be removed immediately. That's all it says. We just simply take this particular type of sign and we give our residents a choice, an option. Or you can basically just say, leave it as it is, which I think is what the Planning Commission says, and we just continue doing what we do. Conversation, comments?
My concern is if you allow it, the majority of people don't clean up their signs.
Sure.
So now you're just littering the city. So even though you have an ordinance that is not enforceable, at least it's an ordinance that could be enforced if it had to be. As soon as you open it up, you open up Pandora's box. Because now you've allowed it, but there's no mechanism to clean it up, to regulate it. You just say, we're suspending the ordinance for your temporary function. I mean, people can advertise in the paper, Facebook, anywhere they want for a yard sale.
Yeah, we just did an estate sale as a family, and we did not put out a single sign. It was all on the Facebook groups. It was all everywhere else, and that's how we drove traffic to our estate sale. So, like the notion of a yard sale sign driving traffic, I wouldn't go to a yard sale just because I don't know when that yard sale was. I'm gonna probably go and look online on.
My recommendation would be to leave it.
Yeah, my recommendation is also to leave it as well. I don't think.
But with your comment, then it suggests is that if in fact we are going to basically follow the ordinance as written, then code enforcement should be go out there collecting every yard sale sign, every location other than when it's on the individual's personal property. Because that's what the ordinance says today. Are you comfortable with enforcing the ordinance as it's written today?
I believe we need to allow people to do things with their property. We already have a lot of rules, a lot of demands, a lot of limitations. This is a small thing. I don't believe it's going to significantly increase the amount of signs that are out there. Most people don't even have an idea that you can't put signs up. So the amount of signs are probably going to be about the same. But you now actually have something that says, okay, yes, you can do it, but these are the parameters to do that. And then you're actually allowing some flexibility. Sometimes it's just the idea that the city isn't bearing down on you constantly. If you've got someone who is your neighbor and they're perfectly happy to have a sign in their yard, what does that really matter? I mean, the other changes are something that, you're starting, it's like government overreach, and we already have a lot of that, and I think this allows us just a little tiny bit back, just to give people and citizens just a little bit. I think that the 24-hour thing is nice. I do think we should maybe just speak a little bit about lost and found. I think that's a very important thing, but 24 hours may not be necessarily appropriate for that. Maybe we can have some subtle, difference in there. But I think it's nice to give a little bit of relief to people and take away some of the overbearing government overreach that's in many areas.
Sophie, Ann, you have comments on this?
Yeah, I agree. I like the short-term provision to put up a sign. I personally don't hardly ever look at Facebook I look at basically sports and obituaries in the paper, so I don't look for yard sales. But I do, if I see a sign on a pole, turn here for a yard sign, I actually drive by and go to yard sales because of the signs. And so, but I know it can be a problem if people don't take them down, because sometimes you see the yard signs there, and I can't see Brock being able to drive around and tear all the signs down afterwards. So, but I think that people should be allowed to have them, and I don't know if they would ever put their numbers on them or if their addresses for us to go around and say, take your signs down. I don't know how to enforce it, but I feel that they should have the right to put the sign up. But I don't know how we'd get the word out to people are going to do it whether we tell them not to or not, because that's how they advertise for everybody to come to their yard is by the signs. So it's kind of a...
Well, and I think to Brody's point, he simply says if you believe that we could at least have the planning commission take a look at this, then what he's willing to do is take that back to the planning commission, open up for public comment, see what the public might come back to the planning commission with recommendations, and then final recommendations coming to the city council for approval. And you can agree with it or not agree with it or not. The conversation tonight is simply, do we task the planning commission to look at this or not? And if it's not, then that's okay. That's a council decision. But if you want to, and you says, hey, let's look at some options, then give him directions to say, have the planning commission take public input, come up with an idea, and let's see how we can manage this. If you believe that yard sale signs, garage sale signs, and certainly lost and found signs, okay, whatever that criteria would be we're willing to accept that to happen within Roy City. Because the alternative that would be is that the signs that are in the city today, particularly the ones that are posted on telephone poles, every one of those are technically illegal.
Are they legal even if our sign ordinance allows it? Because that's not our property.
No.
Power poles.
That's the whole point. The whole point is they're not in public spaces. There's nothing in this proposal that says you can put them on a public space. What it does say, and maybe the conversation says, is that if in fact you have a neighbor that happens, a good friend, a family member that happens to have has visibility from their yard by a public road, that you can go up and ask them permission to put your yard sale sign in their yard on a public property.
I would be okay with that. I don't have a problem.
Well,
yeah. Let me paint a picture then, because I have a lamp post in my neighborhood, okay, but it's in the park strip. That's public land, but the lamp post is owned by the electric company. Yeah.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's maintained by them. And so would I have ability, if we change the yard sale ordinance to tell my neighbors that they can now put yard sale signs on that? If I gave permission, is that what we're saying?
I don't think you can give permission to put it on a
Exactly.
telephone pole or a power pole.
And that's the thing is, I think the scope of what we're saying is allowing people the ability to take and post it in their yard for a set period of time. And again, I'm stepping back and I'm questioning what changes in that regard.
It just allows them to go ahead and go to a friend,
A
neighbor,
Okay, so
and
you're saying,
authorize to
okay,
put them on private property.
Right. So the scope of what we're talking about is basically extending the ability for, if I had a yard sale sign, going to my neighbor down around the corner and saying, hey, would you post this in your yard?
Exactly.
Okay.
I don't have a problem with that. I have a problem just open up Pandora's box to say you can put them anywhere you want to.
Oh,
Yeah.
agreed.
And-
We nothing ever said, and certainly I wouldn't believe the planning commission will come back and say any public space is an opportunity to put it there. I honestly would say to the council and recommend, do not approve that if that be the case. But in those areas, as Councilman Wilson suggested, where it deals with private property, then it gives the private property owner a right to choose. And that's all she said. Give them choices. And right now, if my neighbor come to me and said, I'd like to put my sign, to have a garage sale in your yard, right now that's illegal. But if you change that, it can be legal. And all you need to do is tell Brody, how do you want to move forward with the yard sign?
Okay, and my comment on that is we have gentlemen on the top of our street every Saturday. He gets bombarded, never gives permission. He's always taking them down. He's always throwing them away.
Because there's a great big power pole
There's
in
a
his
power
front
pole
yard.
in his yard, and people love that power pole, and you can see him ripping them down, and I feel bad for him.
That was my concern of
like
why I
that's-
said
that's-
don't
Should
do
never
it.
be on there. That's,
I
do
don't know
believe
how- I don't know
public
how you
comment
avoid something like
is
that.
important.
So what
Well,
if
and
I
it's
have
in his yard all the time.
Right,
Like, it's the whole
right.
thing.
Well, what if you have like 6 neighbors up the road? Can you put a sign kind of leading people to your house?
With arrows? Well, here's the thing is, okay, let's take a step
So-
back, right?
Now you're being a realtor.
Yeah, no, that's exactly where I was going. I was like, realtors do it all the time.
Oh.
But they usually, if they're doing open houses, things of that nature, it's a non-permanent sign.
And they take them quickly.
And they take them quickly down
They have
when
their
it's
2-hour
done.
open
They're
house.
they're
and
better
they're-
stewards in that regard.
agreed.
What? Okay, so again, I'm just playing.
Can't win either way. I
No.
don't think either way is enforceable.
Could we narrow the scope? Could we narrow the scope to where it's only on residential, non-commercial property?
So, I mean, within the bounds of the law, you can do what you want.
That's again where I'm going with that is like, because again, I don't want
Because
yard-
right
Go ahead.
now, you can't post
No.
things on public property.
Well, and again,
Okay,
I'm saying,
so-
and I'm painting the picture of if I wanted to have arrows pointing yard sale this way, which people already do. Let's just call a spade, and to the mayor's point, we're not going through and enforcing it if they don't take those signs down. Again, I guess I don't know.
May I suggest, I know this is hard, but I'm suggesting is, there's 2 choices here. Would you allow the planning commission to take public input to consider coming back with an option? Or do you feel comfortable leaving the ordinance as written? And what is written, I've provided to you into the packet. That's what the law says here. And let me make this clear, council. You are the law. Okay? You are the law. And your decision determines how the population is in fact going to deal with this issue.
And I'm going to say, Councilmember Scadden's line, plagiarism is the highest form of flattery when it comes to, what's out there. Are there municipalities that have addressed this?
Yes.
Absolutely, there's some in your
It's in the
packet,
packet.
right?
In your packet.
And planning commission looked at those.
And that's what I'm saying. And they came back and said,
So
no,
that's where,
okay.
we kind of go back to the beginning. These are very difficult conversations because where does it stop? How do you enforce it? What do you do? We're more than,
Anything you do is not going to be enforceable because
No.
even if you allow them to put them in your neighbor's yard,
Yeah. If they don't remove them, who's at fault? Is it the person that put it in, or is it the property owner? Like where does the fault lie?
I would say if I allowed somebody to put it in my yard, I would say, when you're going to take it out. If they don't take it out, I take it out and dump it in the trash.
Yeah, because if they're your neighbor,
It's in my
you can
yard.
call them. You'd probably have their phone number and say,
Yeah.
yeah, or
Agreed.
just go throw it in their yard.
It's private property rights. That really is the heart of this. I mean, it's not going on any public property anywhere. It shouldn't go there, but private property is simply giving the private property a choice. And if somebody walked by and says, I'm going to put a sign in my front yard without asking, it'll take me 3 seconds to get it off my yard and into a trash can. But if they do ask and I give it permission, then I'm saying to you is, then I set the terms of how it's going to be used. And if it's there 2 days from now when it shouldn't be, I'll pull it out and throw it away myself.
My concern is you're not on a high-profile corner. I feel for the people that are on a high-profile corner that are
absolutely.
going to have to deal with it. If you say nothing on a power pole, they're going to put something in the park strip.
I know. You sense the challenge. And technically today, to your point, the code enforcement should be out there seeing every sign on every power pole, on every park strip, and they should be simply taking them off. And if they didn't have the individual's name and phone number, those things should be disposed of under the law today.
And I would just say it doesn't happen often, basically because of manpower. But I know our code enforcement officer, I also know myself and city manager on weekends have gotten complaints, and we've gone out and pulled 50 to 75 signs and thrown them in the trash. So
There
we
we
do our
go.
best with it, the way it is.
And that's what the ordinance says we're supposed to do. And I'm not saying that stops. I'm just saying is, as it deals with private property, that's the issue. Brody needs direction, council, and I'm okay, whatever decision you decide. But should we give him some direction to have planning commission take public input and come back with a recommendation, or should we leave it as it is today and move on to the next topic?
I'm curious why they didn't take public input,
So they would
because
take,
it's already been to them.
so they would take public comment if they recommend changes to the zoning
But
ordinance.
that's things they didn't, so there's
And
no,
they went
there's no
through
impetus.
a discussion similar to what we've had. I think they actually went through two, one of which took them much longer than we've been here tonight. And they said after these discussions, we're making a recommendation to leave it alone. So they don't take public comments because there's no change.
Makes sense.
So if we want them to go back and go through that process, that's fine. I just need at least three to give me direction of what we're telling them to ask, right? Because they went through it all and said, no, if we want them to ask something, I need direction from three as to what we're doing.
Okay, so
Well,
with that,
I
Diane?
certainly have already voiced my opinion, but I believe that we should have ability for public opinion to be able to use private property and to be able to have specific guidelines similar to what we have, maybe some fine tuning, but I believe that we've had public people come and talk about it. We've had comments about it, so I believe that would be important.
It is interesting that it was on the agenda and nobody talked about it during public comments. I mean, Kevin alluded to it, but
Yeah.
I just,
But I like it in the record with the planning commission, because that's really the heart, if you allow that to happen tonight. So, Ann?
Right.
It's
I
okay
feel
either
that
way.
it should go back to the planning commission. I really feel that I like what the mayor has, the short term, where they can have a sign up if they have permission from
Okay.
their neighbor.
Sophie, your thoughts?
I'm going to have to say no, because the planning commission has already reviewed and and I'm not.
Okay.
Diane,
I think you made your point. Randy, your position?
I'm a no.
Okay, Joe?
I'm a no.
Okay, you got your answer. Okay.
So basically.
Okay, let's go to land use update dealing with the subdivision regulation. Brody, you want to carry this one and we'll talk this one?
Yes.
Keep it rolling.
Okay, so this is regarding Senate Bill 174, which was a state bill basically requiring the mechanism in which cities are going to approve new subdivisions in that process. It's obviously much more complex. I'm simplifying it. We are required by February 1 of 2024 to have what is our Title 11 comply with Senate Bill 174. So with that, Planning Commission had this for quite a while as well. They went through and changed Title 11 with appropriate public comments and brought a proposed new draft of Title 11. That was sent out to the council and the mayor. A couple council members reached out to me with some concerns. The mayor also drafted a document with his concerns of some changes that need to happen, as well as some questions regarding compliance to all of 174. Mr. Wilson and I sat down and started going through that with the concerns. I would like to say, when I talk about concerns, this is not a shot at Planning Commission. Senate Bill 174, Mayor probably knows. Do you remember how many pages it was? I mean, it was huge, right? So this is a very complicated task. Basically, where we're at right now, you have the proposal that came from Planning Commission as well as the mayor's drafted concerns. But what we'd like to do, Mr. Wilson and I, as well as Steve Parkinson, our planner, we've been kind of going through making some alterations for basically compliance to the state law and some of the compliance issues as you go through legally. You start here and you flow chart down to about 4 other statutes. And so we're basically going through that and have found a couple of things that need changes and tidied up. So I'm open to hear suggestions from the council or discussion that you guys want to have, that's fine. But where we're at kind of staff-wise and procedurally, our hope is to have what we would consider a finalized draft of our proposed new Title 11. We would hope to give that to the council next week for a final vote on December 19th.
Right.
Give us plenty of time to comply with the statute. I say we, I hope I'm not speaking out of turn, but Mr. Wilson and I are both very confident that after that time and kind of back and forth, I think we will have, I'll say it, it'll be the best version of the document that Mr. Wilson and I can come up with. Just piggyback on Councilmember Scadden. In looking, there has not been another city that has done this yet, so we can't plagiarize. So we are,
Dang it.
You're pioneers.
I don't know if I'd go that far, but we're doing our best. So that's where we are with that. Like I said, happy to hear anything on that, but that's kind of our timeline for that and what we'd like to see.
Perfect, bro. Okay.
I mean, at the end of the day, we're pretty much bound by
Whatever the state says.
what the state says. So if you draft it to make it compliant, I'll ratify it next council meeting.
Yeah, the challenge I think we've got, if you read the draft that was presented and the points that I was bringing out, focused on a couple of things. First thing is that there was no reference in our draft Title 11 that talked about the requirements for 15-day notification. So if there's a preliminary subdivision review requirement, then the city had 15 days from the first contact, okay, to be able to provide a decision. And it didn't give any reference to the 20 days on the tail end. So upon receipt of the final package for the final subdivision, and please understand subdivision. Subdivision is not just residential. You have subdivisions with commercial and industry.
And it's not zoning either. I think some people confuse subdivision with zoning.
Exactly.
I wouldn't want staff or planning commission to change zoning without it coming to the council. But subdivision, and let's face it, how much is there left to subdivide in Roy?
Well, there's some truth in that. Here's the problem with Joe, and I'll tell you, it embarrasses me to say this, but you as a council, by law, our ordinance was required to approve every preliminary subdivision plat, okay, for the last 7 or 8 years. And not one of you have ever approved that since you've been in office. The law ordinance under Title 11 as it reads today required the mayor to approve the final subdivision plat. I had to approve that by our ordinance, and I have never done that as a city council member or as mayor. So we have been in absolute violation of our Title 11 since I've been in office. Now, that's not, I don't only take that proud that's a violation of the ordinance. We now have to fix this. And interesting enough, the fix that we're proposing and what's being done is what we've been doing ever since we started 6, 7, 8 years ago. It's just now going to be codified, if Brody was to use the right language, into what the law should be. And guess what? Senate Bill 174 is driving that. Here's the pieces that is absent, that we're just looking for some direction. Where's the 15 days? Where's the 20 days? We need to understand that. There's a panel in there, an appeal panel requirement under very interesting circumstances. There's no reference about that panel, which required 3 engineers that had to make that final decision on appeal. There was no reference in there. It was just an interesting piece that deals with House Bill 406, because House Bill 406 says this, Council, It says the municipality cannot require any road be more than 32 feet. 32 feet in House Bill 406. And I'll tell you, the minimum width in that document you read, it had to be 60 feet. So there's a issue that has to be worked out, and how do we address that? So the question then is, this is the document you reviewed. What do we do in terms of those particular issues that need to be looked at and assessed by the city attorney and by the community director for us to come up with what appears to be a document that we can sign? And I don't know what those answers are until we see the final document.
Mayor, if I
Please.
may, so there is an exception to that 32 feet.
Yeah.
Well, there's a number of exceptions.
right.
One that does include allowing for street parking.
Yeah.
That's nice to hear.
So
Thank you.
there is a number of reasons, and they're in that document I sent you. It talks about where those exceptions are. So the point I want to suggest is that if this is our final chance to get it right, because we haven't got it right for 7 years, then how about we just make sure that we do it right the first time? And the comments I made were just simply comparisons as it relates to what the law said, as I, an ignorant person who doesn't understand the law, read in the law and what I read in our Title 11 as written. And I just pointed those out. If you remember going through that document, there were a lot of things were spot on. We got it. It's done. It's in the new draft. There were just a couple that need to be asked and answered. And if we can get that answered, then I say we're ready to submit that for approval.
So I have a comment on that. That when I was reading through that document, that was the first piece I saw, and that was I had question marks all over it. Effective of mayoral final subdivision application approval. So do we take that out, or we?
We've already struck in the word mayoral from it because the intent of, so we at Roy City voluntarily changed this ordinance, as the mayor mentioned, about 6 or 7 years ago. Now,
Okay.
the mayor's pointed out both mine and Mr. Wilson's flaws for the last few years, very, very eloquently. But we voluntarily took some of these things away from city council based on our insurance attorney at the time. So the process, we took them out and put them into a hybrid of this, which we're gonna now shrink back to comply with this. So we've been doing that. What's 174 did is the state basically told all the cities, city councils, elected officials are out of the subdivision business because it's not a political thing. A subdivision meets the ordinance and is good to go, or it doesn't. So they're taking that all
Like
out.
a conditional use. If it meets the conditions, you can't deny it.
More or less. You guys still have the zoning authority to say who goes what where, but we're essentially saying the planning commission and the city council, you guys don't make those decisions. It's an up or down administrative checklist. So there are those things. So the mayoral, I don't know why we didn't catch that. We just didn't, but that's already taken out of our draft document. Mayor talked about some of the streets widths already. We've actually changed some definitions and brought in definitions from other sections of our code that really specify what those widths mean and whether it's 32 feet of asphalt, 32 feet of asphalt, curb, gutter, and sidewalk, 32 feet only asphalt, 32 feet including the easements. So it is a highly technical definition that we do need to get right, and we've been going through that.
Okay.
If there are anything else, let's talk about it so that we know that we're on the right track.
Nope, that was the only one I had.
Yeah, I haven't seen the update, but obviously they've been working it. So that's the best part. It's being worked. But is there anything that you read in the packet that we sent you, anything that stands out that you also may have a question on, or were you just ready to say, hey, let's let them do their part, get it back to us for final approval?
I already went through mine with Steve, and so I'm fine that way.
Okay, you provided input to them on your
Yes.
thoughts? Okay, good. Anything else? Okay, Brody, I guess the takeaway from this conversation would be is just continue between you and the city attorney. Matt, just work it as you guys can. Come back with a document. There may be some tweaks. We hope not, and it'll be ready for approval hopefully on the 19th.
And I don't want to be up here too long. My feet are getting tired, but if I can get one point of clarification, as it's written now, the zoning administrator or the person that signs off on subdivisions right now is is myself. It's a community development director or a designee. There are some cities that have talked about making the planning commission that entity that signs those. The reason the planning commission and ourselves, we didn't do that is because of the timelines that are mandated. The 15 and the 20 days aren't something we pulled out of air. That's state statute, so we have to follow it no matter what. So I just want to make sure the council's on board with that decision, that kind of route, because what we kind of decided and the planning commission decided is we don't want to be running up against a timeline trying to get a public meeting scheduled to sign a subdivision.
I agree.
Agreed.
Everyone's okay with that? All right.
Do your best.
Yeah, those 15 and 20 days,
Right.
they're just going to be terrible. And trying to get a planning commission vote in the middle of that, I don't know how any municipality would be able to make that work. So, yes, thank you, Brody. So we'll just go ahead and move forward, look forward to that document. If you can get it to us early, I think a week or so before city council, to give you a chance to go through it real quick, and then we'll be ready to make a decision as we get together on the 19th. Okay, land use updates. This one deals with internal accessory dwelling units. This one also is a part of House Senate Bill 174. Interesting enough, this bill put this issue about garage can also be an internal accessory dwelling unit. Actually went into effect on the 3rd of May 2023. And so it's already in action. The question we have is just twofold, and I just want to get your thoughts on this. One part that talks about the idea about maybe we should put at least a reference to the reader of this ordinance that a garage can be considered as an internal accessory dwelling unit. That's what the law allows. And the other part would be is parking.
The parking's the one I had the issue with.
likewise.
To make them park in the back of the yard, I mean, I have a gravel pad all down the side of my house. If I want to have an IADU and allow somebody to park on the side of my house, what's wrong with that?
Hence
As
becomes
of
the
right
question.
now, it's illegal.
I know.
It's illegal. Yeah, in fact, any vehicle, any trailer, a car, motorhome, any vehicle, by definition in the Title 10, is illegal to park on the side of your house. But all I'm suggesting to you is that this issue only deals with one part of that. And here's the part, and so we stay focused. The law says today in the ordinance, well, let me back up. Are you okay with an idea that simply says, just put the word garage to give a reader of the ordinance to know if they want to convert their garage over to an IADU?
I know people that's done it already, so.
Well, and that's another point. We probably have, to best of our knowledge, 3 people who have filed a license in Roy City to have an IADU to convert to their basement. And council, I will tell you, I believe there's a whole lot more people than that. They're just not notifying the city, but that's a conversation we got to have. But are you okay with an idea that simply makes reference in the code of Title 10 that a garage can be, if the property owner wants to, can be converted to an IADU as long as it meets the standard requirements under the ordinance?
Yes.
That's part one.
Do they have to get a building permit for a garage?
Get a building
any-
permit to convert.
Conversion. It's a conversion, so they'd have to go through standard plumbing, all the regular.
Exactly.
Same with a basement.
Yeah.
Yep.
Same thing. Yeah, there you go.
Same thing. You okay with that?
Yep.
Okay. Brody, you okay? Let's just find a good place to stick that. Part 2, parking. Here's what the ordinance says. If you, in fact, choose to want to put an IADU, an internal accessory dwelling unit, in your home, then what it basically says, and let's just pick the easy one, the basement, then you have to basically provide, you have to notify the city when you get the permit of where you're going to put that parking place. You have to have a parking place. And it cannot be in tandem, which means if you got a 2-car garage, you cannot make the parking place in that driveway to the 2-car garage. That's illegal. The law says you cannot put it on the side of the house today. You cannot put it in the front yard, the front setback.
I agree
You
with
cannot
that.
declare the city road as a parking place. The only place that's in the code today that allows you to park a car under the IADU, I'm going to keep careful to make sure I don't drag this other piece into this, is the only place that makes any sense is in the backyard, which you certainly can do that. But you have to put a driveway on the side of the house to get to the backyard.
What's wrong with parking on the side of their house?
Yeah, because
It's
like I have an
against,
RV
it's
pad.
against ordinance today
Change the
unless you
ordinance.
change it.
You said we're the law.
Well,
It's,
that needs to be changed.
okay.
Why would you park in a backyard if you park on the side of your house?
Right.
I mean, and then that costs a lot of money to
Yeah.
have,
Yeah.
you know, a roadway into your backyard.
Well, and if you have one person that lives in the house, or you even have two people that live in the house, and they've got two cars, and you can put a third car on the side of it, who cares?
Right.
Okay. So, Brody,
I-
here's the direction.
I think we need to also address the tandem sort of thing, because I don't think that that's necessary. And, you know, there are a lot of homes, you know, Roy's on a hill. There are a lot of homes that have hills on the side, so they can't really park on the side of the house. And we now have several homes with very narrow side yards, so maybe they're 3 or 4 feet, so they can't even, I mean, we need to really stretch this and consider, because it's not going to be decreasing the people that are going to be living in other homes or the IADUs. We need to be looking further ahead. We need to be planning ahead and not just limit it to one little option.
Well, we're not saying that they can't park in their backyard. That should be an option though, either if you can park, if you have room and the footage, park
Yep.
on the side of your garage.
Right.
But if you don't, then you should
So-
be able to park in your backyard.
So again, let me clarify. Right now, I have what is commonly referred to as an RV pad to the side of my third car garage. I could not technically park a vehicle now there.
No, you can. You can't have that as your primary parking spot.
Okay, so let me.
you
let
have
me-
to have
if I converted my third car garage, I could not count my RV pad. I would have to extend it out to the back.
Right.
With what we're saying.
So right now, the
That's
ordinance
dumb.
says a primary parking spot can't be in the setback.
It's dumb.
And we can change it, but it just does open up a whole bunch of other cans,
Sure.
So two comments then. The setback, as he's indicated under the law, says it cannot be on the side setback and it can't be on the front setback. That's what the law said. It can be on the back setback, which is the backyard typically. To Diane's point, she's saying is, can we basically allow then the law for those people who basically can't get access to their backyard? Can there be another part of the property that allows them to park a vehicle on the front setback as long as it's not on the lawn? Am I okay with that comment, Diane?
Right. I mean, you've got a garage, you got a driveway, so why not allow in tandem parking?
So,
And
again,
I'm good with everything but the front yard.
You can in tandem park, but you can't use the in tandem as
Right.
the primary parking
that's what
right
I'm,
now.
yeah, so I
Yeah.
just think we need to expand what we're talking about for primary parking
it's-
for IADU.
Yeah. It's important for us because we hear a lot of, you know, we say things and then we get called and yelled at about how, you know, we're terrible people, and because you can park, but you have to have a primary parking that fits within the ordinance. So really the discussion is, where do you want, if somebody has an IADU, where do you want primary parking? Do you want it on all setbacks, just a couple? Side, I think everyone's clear with. Do we want the planning commission to talk about front setbacks as well?
I think
I
if
need
it's
some
on the
direction there.
garage area. In front
As
of
you
the
pull
garage.
it, like if you have a 2-car garage, you have usually two in front of that. If they want to play musical cars,
That's their option.
their option, yeah, that is up to them.
So the word I think I'm hearing, at least from two of them, would be is the word tandem may very well be the issue, because the law today says they cannot park in tandem.
We can work through that. I'll just tell you that there will be a bunch of fire safety that we have to go through and look at that, because we are thinking IADUs as people that get along and know one another, but it very much could be two complete strangers who don't talk, and one works nights and one works days. So a tandem could be something we have to work through. We'll work through it if that's the direction we're going.
So not on the grass, but driveways.
It could also complicate the issue. If you were to say you can park in tandem and you're required to have 2 primary parking stalls, I can build a new house, 1 single car garage, and in tandem create a single car behind it. That's my 2 parking stalls. My 2 primary parking stalls for that house have a side setback of 5 feet, so I can't park over there. And yeah, I can play musical cars, but that dwelling is only gonna be able to have 2 cars parked there, period.
Right.
And because, you know, the front setback's not gonna be longer than 20 feet, so if a third car comes to that dwelling, it's going to have to park on the street.
Right.
So you could actually compound that issue by doing something like that. When we're trying to make parking, you know, better on the resident, more accessible for the resident, you could compound that issue. And I think that's
Well,
what we're
let's check it
saying
out.
of saying, you know, if you do it side by side, you could compound that too, because you could have 1 parking in the setback and 1 parking a single car garage as well.
That's correct.
And so when I look at that, I think you could take your whole garage, I could add 4 more bedrooms in my 3-car garage.
Exactly,
And
yeah.
then I don't have any
Parking
parking.
because you're
Well, I would
parking in your
have, but,
setback
right.
as a primary parking stall.
Yeah.
Thus, everybody else having to park on the city streets.
Well, how many people's garage are full of stuff and they can't even park a car in the garage?
Just the Pauls.
Right.
It's already happening
No
today.
comment.
Did you not even hear what I said? I said just the Pauls.
So we want planning commission
car
to
is
look
in
at
the
all
garage.
setbacks.
Yeah.
I like it.
Except
You
front
okay with
yard.
that?
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
No
except
front
for
yard, yeah.
No
just
front-
maybe little
no
spots.
She's referring to the
Oh, grass.
grass. Joe, I think you're referring no parking on grass.
Correct.
Okay? But I
Front yard
sense that there
setback.
can at least be a conversation
I think
dealing with the
yes.
front setback as it relates with
There need to be
tandem.
option.
Yep.
Okay.
RV pads,
And the,
Right.
okay.
Side.
side, yeah,
Yep.
side parking.
Oh,
You okay with
all
that one,
setbacks,
Brody?
I'll do what you guys say.
Council, we're making headway. Just work with us on this. We're almost there. Okay. Council, thank you, Brody.
Yep.
Important that we get this direction so that they can get the planning commission moving forward. Flashing pedestrian beacons, I sent you a paper that just basically was more information only. We're not asking for a lot of discussion on this. But there was a recommendation brought forth in one of our previous city council meetings where the residents suggested that we look at a beacon on 3100 West around 4950. Specifically, it's actually 4975. There's a pedestrian crossing across that road. And primarily, the children coming out of Midland Elementary School are walking home, and they're walking on the east side of 3100, but they live on the west side. And the reason why that's the case is because there is no continuous sidewalk from 4800 all the way to 4975. There's a couple of patches, but it's not continuous. So the guards, in this case, are directing the children to walk, I would hope, it makes sense, not on the road, to get on the sidewalk and walk down the east side of 3100 and then cross over at the crossing at 4975. And his recommendation, which made sense, his recommendation would be is, can we put one of those pedestrian beacon lights where they push the button when they get there to alert the traffic that travels 3100?
What's different about that and 4300 West?
Yeah, Emma
Because
Russell,
we
yeah.
had people, and the one at Emma Russell's even going to get more interesting because the school just changed the boundaries, and our whole neighborhood now will cross.
Okay, now the conversation, I'm going to shift to Matt because he's got some more information to help us walk through
Matt.
this.
So this is something that we've been looking at for a little bit. A couple of years ago, we put in for a project for funding to do the sidewalk on that west side of the street so they don't have to cross over. Right now, you have 2 crossing guards at 4800 South and 3100 West. So that will let the children walk on the west side of the road. Right now, we're doing the EA on that project, the environmental assessment. This money is tied to federal funds, and so there's quite the process that follows it. But the reward was around $270,000 to do that project. The goal is we would like to have continuous sidewalk from 48 all the way over to 50, or to 6,000.
So the resident, Steph Jensen, I believe was his name, brought a really good point up. But Joe, to your point, based on the standard requirements that we just had done on 4300 right there by Emma Russell, it came back after the engineering study was done, as you indicated, and it didn't justify putting that beacon in there. Matt and I talked, and we don't believe that that beacon would be justified on 31 at this location as well. But in light of the fact that the city has already taken action back in 2019 and started the process, okay, Brandon, to look at how we're going to provide a safe walking path for those children. The action was put in, and we're now got the funding. We're working through the environmental assessment. Once the environmental assessment comes back good, then that will give Public Works the trigger to go ahead and be able to put that continuous sidewalk on the west side of 3100 and allow those children to be pretty well protected all the way home.
So from 4,800 to 6,000?
Well, it's right
So-
now approved all the way from 4,800 to 5,000.
Oh, to 5,000.
But the long-range plan that Matt suggested, we need to take that to the next level, all the way over to 6,000.
So it's taken 4 years just to,
Because they put federal funding in it.
Federal funding, yeah, because you have to wait for the award to come. And then once the award comes, we got the money now, so we can start using it.
so maybe like next spring, they could start on maybe the sidewalks?
It's a much longer process with federal funds. When I say that, it's a long time. I don't know when the project will be completed, though.
There's another one I'd like to, I've talked to staff and I've talked to a resident, officially put on the books. 6,000 just below 1900 West on the south side of the road. Butters, Lawn World, 2 private property houses. There's no sidewalk in front of that.
Yep.
And that's actually where the flow is directing people
I know.
to walk, and there's no sidewalk. It's my understanding at least one of the businesses doesn't want to. One of the others on the fence and the 2 private house owners want to.
That's right.
I don't know how you can force the issue, but when it's a safety, how do you deal with that?
So I would just say this has only been noticed for the first area, what is it, 3,100 and up to 5,000 south. So
Yeah.
we should keep that conversation to.
I'm just creating a conversation about another area that we need to think about.
Yeah, I think we can answer that, but maybe the break I'll tell you exactly what we know about that, and you probably already know that, Joe, but to your point, it is an issue, and we've got to find some solution to that. So, council, are you okay with what you've been presented to answer the good residents' request to find some way we can protect this? Are you okay with the direction we're moving?
Well, so
Okay.
basically, we're telling him
It's
as soon
2029,
as the federal
2030.
funding is available, then the kids so far just take their chances. They'll walk on the east side of the road, and
They're-
then
He just told you 5 to 6 years.
And there is a crosswalk right there as well.
Yeah.
So what they're requesting is a traffic control device that if we do a transportation study, that we don't know if that control device, or if it's gonna come back, just like 4,300 West, to say that we should put a control device there.
All right.
So we have an alternative to that control device, but because of the federal funding, it takes forever. And when I mean forever, I mean about 4 more years, 5 more, well, no, that's 7 more years, to get all that money. But that's like a 2029, 2030 to get all the way to 6,000 for $1 million or more dollars.
well, so is there enough kids that cross there that we could hire another crossing guard to help kids cross right there?
That's
We
certainly an alternative.
look at that.
If you want to fund that.
Or how much is the study to do,
The studies are a couple $1,000s that we would have to pay to
be-
do a control device.
yeah, see how much it
Well,
would
how much
cost to
is a
hire.
crossing guard for?
Yeah.
If you Google safe sidewalk routes, you can search up that area and kind of count the households that would be utilizing that area. We could also go down in that area and just see how many students are crossing that road. We've done that before to see how many people are crossing there at that crosswalk. I can go down there in the morning.
Yeah, it might be good to get a little more information to decide
Yeah.
that. Thank you.
I think that was the big problem on 4,300 West. People were crossing it, but there wasn't a crazy amount.
Right.
The numbers were actually very low.
We should be able to go to Weber School District and they should be able to tell us how many students are technically crossing that because they actually track all that type of stuff.
Yeah, I would suggest, right now, it's gonna be a bad time of the year because it's cold and
Right.
people are gonna be driving.
Well, I'm
their
just saying in
students to school.
general, they can tell you how many students live
Live in
on
that area.
on that side that would actually potentially
Potentially
cross that.
cross that, yeah.
Because I ran into the exact same thing in the Herefordshire because again, there was the notion of the kids coming out of the Herefordshire subdivision had to come across 1900. And there was outside of pushing the, even with the light, people were concerned. So, and they were able to come back and tell me there was X number of students in that particular neighborhood. So it might be something we may want to reach out to the district about.
Well, and certainly that, but Brandon, I'll put you on the spot here. There's one other option. You certainly, recognizing the difference between traffic control devices, which these flashing signals are, versus Joe's favorite conversation, traffic calming devices. In which case, the speed limit or speed indicator signs that we have are actually calming devices. And they can be put in any place the city council or public works would like them to be placed without having to go through an engineering study. To that point, if you believe that we got 5 more years and we really may not be able to afford to hire another one, because sometimes we have a hard time just getting crossing guards, then maybe we can ask Public Works Council to consider putting a traffic calming device, which is the speed indicator. You've seen them, okay? And we can ask that to be placed on 3100 at this location. At least it'll give the driver notification to get down to 25 miles an hour, which is the speed limit through there.
Yeah, we, in the transportation plan on 3100 West, more by 5200 South, it is a location on the transportation plan for a calming device. That is one of the locations that we are going to put one both north and southbound. This is a couple of blocks away from that crosswalk, but it is on that main line.
Well, because as soon as they get that light on 56 and 3100, there's going to be so much more traffic on that road.
I can agree
Sure
with
that.
So,
So is there a time that you would use the orange flags
just gonna
again for a temporary short-term thing? I know we've gotten away from it lately, but
So they actually frown upon that. They, from what my understanding is it provides the pedestrian with a false sense of security when they're crossing the
Okay.
road.
I
So
know
they
we
feel like they're going to be
haven't done it,
seen,
so-
and then they're not seen, and then they lose. So
What would you like to do, council?
Well, I'd like to get some numbers first, maybe, and then we can have further discussion because,
if
Yeah.
we would like to do a transportation plan, my fear is this time of year it's going to come back
Like really
more
low.
unfavorable
yeah, because most
than
people, if
a
it's
regular
cold,
time
are
of
getting
year,
rides.
Yeah.
So if we want to go down and kind of do it ourselves to
Yeah,
see how
let's
many
start
students are
with that.
crossing, and
Yeah,
then
let's
at a
start.
later date I can report back to say, you know, how many are, and then come back and say we can do a transportation study at a later time, like
Or
maybe
we
in the
could
spring.
Have Mr. Jensen, he's retired, he probably could count them and tell us too. He'd
True.
probably be happy to tell us how many people walk across right there. Probably knows half of them, so.
Probably does. Well, Matt is indicating he'll put staff down there to do the numbers, bring that back. So we'll plan to have that back to you on the 19th. You okay with that, council?
Yep.
Okay, so let's plan on the 19th, coming back with some raw numbers, and we'll see where we go. Okay, great conversation. Thank you. Speed limit on 4400 South. This is going to be a special public comment period. What I'm going to do, I'd like to do if I can, Diane, I'd like you to lead the conversation, kind of frame where we are on this, and then I'm going to open up for public comment. I'll ask you to come to the mic, give us your name and address, make your comments, and then council, after we're through the public comments, we'll have some discussion what you'd like to do next. So kind of frame, Diane, if you want, with us what you're thinking here.
thank you. Over the last several years, I've had several people approach me about increasing the speed limit on 4400 South as it is west of 1900. Until several years ago, the speed limit on 4400 South west of 1900 was 35 miles per hour. It is now 25, but it is still currently 35 miles per hour east of 1900 South. 4400 South is a main artery with good visibility. All other east-west main arteries are 35 miles per hour, 4,000, 48, 56, 6,000. These arteries have similar features, including school crossings, adjacent schools, etc. To evaluate these requests, traffic data was collected. Traffic standards state that when evaluating obtained traffic data, the appropriate speed limit should be the 85th percentile. The data reveals that 33 miles per hour is the 85th percentile speed at 4400 South. This means that the speed limit of 25 miles per hour is making lawbreakers of 85% of the drivers. This information indicates the appropriate speed should be 30 to 35 miles per hour. Appropriate speed limits improve safety because drivers can focus on driving safely versus concern over receiving a ticket because it is hard to go an artificially low speed. 30 miles per hour is an appropriate balance that allows for improved traffic flow while maintaining appropriate driver focus and safety. 4400 South has a hill and curve that requires slowing that starts at 2450 South. With that in mind, the 30 mile per hour would change to 25 miles per hour at 2400 South, going west. Evaluating traffic data and taking into consideration safety, 30 miles per hour is a reasonable and data-supported change. And Chief Gwynn was unable to be here today as he has been collaborating on this. And I would just like to read his comments. I am writing regarding Councilwoman Wilson's request to increase the speed limit on 4400 South from 25 to 30 miles per hour. I will be on vacation during the City Council meeting on December 5th and wanted to privy you with my thoughts in my absence, as I'm sure questions will arise. These thoughts have also been articulated to Councilwoman Wilson, who seemed to agree. In addition to speaking with her about this issue and her concerns, I have personally conducted traffic enforcement on 4400 South throughout the duration of my 20-year career with Roy Police Department and still frequently travel through that area. The data that is being provided does objectively suggest support for the speed limit on 4400 South being increased from 25 to 30 miles per hour. We did briefly discuss an increase to 35 miles per hour. The road width and environmental conditions are such that most drivers, based on the data, feel comfortable driving on 4400 South at a speed of around 30 miles per hour. I explained that I would be supportive as the police chief of the change under the following conditions: that the increase be 30 miles per hour as opposed to 35, the change be limited to the section of 4400 South between 1900 West and 2400 West, the speed limit between 2400 West and 2675 should remain 25 miles per hour in preparation for the S-curve, which has a suggested speed of 20 miles per hour. And here is my reasoning. 4400 South has characteristics that set it apart from the other major east-west corridors in Roy, in that it doesn't traverse the entire width. Unlike 4400 South, those corridors are horizontally straight, whereas 4400 South has an S-curve that combines both horizontal and vertical elevation change. If these conditions can and are met, then I would encourage the City Council to support the request to change the speed limit on 4400 South between 1900 and 2400 West to 30 miles per hour. There is only one school crossing in the affected area. However, this change will have no operational impact on that school crossing. If you or others have any other concerns or questions, don't hesitate to reach out. So with that information, I present that with the data, it has an objective evidence that 30 miles per hour would be very appropriate, an appropriate balance, and then I pass that to you, Mayor.
Okay, thanks, Diane. Council, I'm going to open this up public comment. I will indicate to you, not everybody in the city was able to attend this meeting tonight. I forward you some comments relative from Mr. Harris. I forward you some comments relative to this issue from Ms. Waite. And I also forward you comments relative to this issue from Mr. Wild. I asked Brittany to make sure they're part of the public record, so their comments will be considered. You've got them in front of you to make sure you kind of get their perspective. I will ask you then, if you'd like, please come up to the mic. Just give us your thoughts. I just need your name and address. I like us to make sure we focus on this issue, which is the speed limit change on 4400 South.
Hello.
Thank you.
I'm Rebecca Bassett. I live at 4548 South, 2600 West. So I'm a great supporter of the idea of having the speed limit from 1900 to 24, whatever 100 it is, and going to 25 down the hill. I traverse that road all the time, day in, day out, all the time. And the school crosswalking that's there, they do have a crossing guard, and it is very clearly marked with the flashing sign, so it's very hard for any drivers to miss that intersection when school's in session and they're doing their things. So most people there go 30 anyway. So, and it is a major artery for majority of us who live in that neighborhood. So I believe it's a great proposal. I believe we should look forward to increasing it to 30.
Thank you. Okay. Anybody else like to share a thought? You're here in person. It's good to see you.
Good to see you, Mayor. Yeah, I had to smile a few minutes ago.
You better give us your name and address.
Oh, Jed Harris, and I live at 4410 South, 2450 West.
Thanks, Jed.
Which is, my north side is on 4400. But as I said, I had to smile a minute ago because you was talking about 3100 and the children. You realize that down 4400, you got 4 schools of kids going off of 4400. You got the high school, the junior high, you got North Park School, North Park Elementary, and Valley View Elementary. Now, you add all of them up, and there's a lot of kids that use that street, a lot more than's coming on 3100, I dare say. But so you can tell that I'm opposed to that speed limit sign, and I appreciate that flashy light that says 3,500. In fact, I wish it was on that speed limit sign just as you cross over 1900. But I would dare say that 4400 is probably the 4th busiest street in Roy, in as much as it's one of the streets that go clear through and over into the town. It's just a straight shot, almost clear through Riverdale, clear down in there. The rest of the streets don't go where you weave around. And as Diane mentioned, coming up 2675 is a nightmare. There's 2 streets there. One on 2525, it's a blind because the curve comes around, you can't see that. And you top that hill, there's 2450 West. There's a crosswalk there for the kids. Kids go across there. I live right on that corner. And you can't believe the number of kids that cross that street and the number of people that come up that hill bent for election because they fly up that hill sometimes. And it's well over the 25 mile an hour because you can hear them roar up there. And I can tell you there's more than one time that the screeching of tires has brought us flying out of that house. Nobody has been actually killed down that street yet, but there's been several over the course of the years hit on that particular area. And I know right now that a lot of people travel that faster than 25 miles an hour. But I'm just telling you full force flush that if you raise that speed limit will increase the speed of those cars. It's just human nature that they want to go up there. Yep, we're lucky that nobody's been killed yet, but I say as yet. Thank you for letting me say this, and once again, I want you to know that I oppose that, raising that speed limit, because I think those kids deserve every chance to make it through life. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else like to share their thoughts? Name and address, thank you.
My name's Trevor Player, and I live on 4547 South, 2675 West. And my son goes to Valley View Elementary, and my daughter goes to Sanders Junior High. And they walk up that curvy hill and up 4400 to go to school. I've been giving them rides lately because the cars fly down my road, down 2675. They go down that road as fast as they can before they hit that hill. There's been 2 cats and 3 dogs hit on that road this summer. And every one of them that hit them animals said, I didn't know it was 25. I didn't see him. There's going to be a child hit next. And if they up that speed limit on that road, right now at 25 it takes less than 2 minutes to drive that road. at 25. Increasing it ain't gonna save anybody any time, no time. I would like to have one of them flashing speed limit signs put on my road. Cause them kids walk across that road every day before and after school. But, I oppose it, and I think it's a bad idea.
Okay,
I really do.
okay. Well, thank you. Anybody else like to share a thought?
I'm Dave Young, and I still live at 4870 South, 2575 West. I travel 4400 quite a bit, especially during the summer, at least 2-3 times a week. I oppose changing the speed limit from 2400 down to 2675. That should be 25. But from 2400 to 1900, 30 is an acceptable option because more than once on my way to George Wellham Park, the library, to the Front Runner Station, or down 4000 to the AutoZone O'Reilly's, I've had cars follow me so close that they should have bought me dinner or invited me to a movie. They think it's my birthday, they flash their lights, honk their horn, and give me some gesture out the window. So I remember when they lowered all the speed limits in Roy to 25, and some of them should not have been lowered. So from 2400 to 1900, I think 30 is an appropriate compromise. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Okay. Name and address.
Leon Wilson at 4302 South, 2675 West. I've lived across the street from Jed Harris for 30 years before marrying, and down the hill for the last 40 years. So I've traveled that road for longer than most of you have been alive. And I think there's a couple issues here at play. That S-curve that drops down the hill is an issue. There is no getting around it. We need to be able to enforce a reduced traffic speed limit on that downhill curve. In fact, I would propose that needs to go to 20 miles an hour down that. And I think that would be reasonable. I think increasing it from 25 to 30, beginning at 2450 and going to 1900 seems appropriate. Let me just give you, it almost echoes what Dave just said. The traffic study on 4400 indicated, as Diane mentioned, 85% of the people travel 33 miles an hour. What that means, among other things, is that most people feel that the road condition is adequate to be able to travel that fast. It means that the current posted speed of 25 miles per hour makes lawbreakers out of 85% of the people that travel that road. It means also that if you're traveling up 4400 at 25 miles an hour, I can guarantee you're going to be, someone's going to be on your bumper, tailgating you, flashing your lights, giving you the finger, and exacerbating the issue of road rage. It just generally, it deflects my attention from being a safe driver to avoiding a confrontation with the guy behind me. And lots of times I'll pull off to the side of the road and just let him zip by me. We all want safer roads for us and for our kids and people we know. I really believe that increasing the speed limit, and it sounds almost counterintuitive, from 25 to 30 miles an hour will actually make it safer. Now, I might be wrong, but there's nothing stopping us a year from now to backing it off again if we decide that that's the best route to go. 4400 was 35 miles an hour for a long time. a long time. And there was a safety record associated with 35 miles an hour down that road. I appreciate the council and willingness to tackle this issue, and I just want you to know, regardless what's decided, I still love you, Jed.
Okay, thank you. Name and address, thank you.
Hi, Sandy Johnson, 4254 South, 2450 West. First-time caller. So when I heard about this issue, my concern was the elementary school that is just south of, there's two elementary schools, one to the north and one to the south, and there are some children. So anyway, my concerns were alleviated, though, in hearing the exact location of where it would become 25 miles an hour again on the west side of the street. There's a crossing guard. They are very committed. We've lived in our house 15 years. Our son went to elementary school, to junior high, to high school. He's an adult now, but the crossing guards have been consistent. There's an extra wide road through that area. And when the children are crossing, typically for school, they have the assistance of the crossing guard and the light. And I have watched many cars stop for pedestrians crossing at other times. So given the area that it becomes 25 miles an hour again on the west end, I support the faster speed limit of 30 miles an hour to the east up to 1900. Thanks.
Okay, Sandy, thank you.
Don Patton, 4599 South, 2350 West. I travel 4400 almost daily. I'm in favor of changing it to 30 from 1900 down to 2400 and then staying at 25 down the S-curve. I think that will actually increase the safety as well. If you go 25 down 4400, you are causing a problem.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else like to share a thought? Okay, we'll go ahead and close the public comments. Council, you've read and heard a lot of information. What's your thoughts? Comments?
I mean, just to kind of alleviate the school concern, right? Because I also live off of 4400, but I'm on the east side of 1900, so I do. And don't let anybody know, but it's like the best kept secret to get down Riverdale Road, especially during the holidays, is down 4400. And when you look at the traffic pattern that's down by Riverdale Elementary, it's 30 miles per hour straight up and down that entire stretch. So, sorry? Oh, but and again, we have a flashing school zone when the school is there. So I'm in favor of increasing it where we're specifying and then keeping the curb area from 2450 at 25. So,
well, reading the emails and listening to that, there's more that's for it that's against it. Obviously, that's a sampling, but we are representative and vote that way. I'd support it, and I'll back up the fact that there's several other places in the city we need to do the exact same thing. I heard somebody say that all the east-west corridors, the main ones, are 35, 6,000 below 3,500 west drops to 25.
Yeah.
So it goes from 35 to 25 as soon as you cross over. Mm-hmm. Down there where Ms. Cooper talked about crossing at 4,300, that's an issue because that's got multiple speed limits along there. So I say we go for it and we look at the transportation study that tells us there's several places we ought to do that on top of this.
Council, any other comments, questions?
A big part of my concern is if you go to 30, are they going to go to 35? That's really my biggest hang up in it. Because if you increase that, so I would have to say get some sort of our flashing light.
We have one down there, and that's the
feedback sign does give us information
and it just
that we
is
could monitor that.
Yeah.
Okay, so I would say monitor that, but that's my fear is if you put it to 30, people go 35.
That feedback sign would be closer to the area that will change to 25.
Correct.
Which is a good place for it.
Yeah.
So is it in the 25 or the 35, like the 30?
I'm not sure. I'd have to go
I'd
travel.
have-
It's
Right, the
close,
25.
it's closer down to the 25 where that
25.
physically
So it would
is
slow
located.
them down going down the hill,
Correct.
going around the S. Yeah.
Correct. And you have a comment on this one?
Well, I just think the same thing because usually I drive 5 miles over. So I'm sorry, but if I don't, my kids yell at me, you drive like a grandma, go faster. So
Well, the funny thing, and
But-
as I say, since my wife's not here, I can talk about her. But she figured out she has this thing called cruise control, because I always used to get after her on the Riverdale portion, and she just now sets the cruise control in her car to 30 miles an hour until we get up and through the roundabouts. And
But I drive down 4,400
Ask my son what cruise control does for you.
almost on a daily basis for a business that I go to, and so I always travel 30, and then they have that sign there that tells me, okay, you're going 33, so I slow down. So I do think that 25, I mean, is really a low speed for that road, but as long as there's good crossing, you know, people that come for both elementaries, and they're, like they say that they're very, you know, diligent in being there, and there's flashing lights, and I guess we could try it, and then, but I just don't want everybody to start going 35 with those young kids walking up and down the roads neither. So, because you never know when they see something and they run out in the road, and it's sure easier to stop if you're not going 35, but.
Okay.
So is
Thank you,
this
Ann.
just a discussion that
all it
if
is.
3 gives you a thumbs up, they can bring back a proposed change?
Yeah, Matt, the direction is majority of the council would like you to move forward, to move that to a 30. Would you come back with the requirement to do that? Council, the law does allow you to make that decision. So it doesn't require an engineering study.
Just need the direction from
Just-
the council. We don't have to do a resolution.
Okay,
Just be the-
then
'Cause
the majority basically says do it.
Yeah, because I just think from 1,900 to 2,400, I mean, that's not even a mile. So how much faster are you going to get from
And especially
point A to
bring in-
point B?
I don't believe it's a speed issue.
It's not the speed
a
issue,
comfort.
it's the traffic, it's the flow.
Traffic,
It's the flow.
it's like you're not worried about, because it's more natural. 25 is not a natural speed limit there. So then you're always kind of worried, oh, maybe I'm going over, am I going to get a ticket? So then you're focusing on that as opposed to focusing on the other issues that you should be focusing on, and then you get the people behind you. So it's it's not a speed specific as in time saving. It's
Just natural flow.
yeah.
Okay. Matt, the majority does indicate they will support it. So let's go ahead and make that happen. Okay? Thank you. One last one on this one before we go to the city manager. For information only, I provided you a paper that talks about what's called the UDOT TTIF, specifically dealing with the first and last mile projects. One of the things that we talked about before, and this thing kinds of matures, there's an issue in terms of how do we get the people on the west side of the railroad tracks to have access to the east side of the railroad tracks at the station. And as you well know, 4,000, the road 4,000 does not have a very effective pedestrian access at that crossing. Matt, Brody, and I have a meeting with UDOT coming up. We're going to talk to that issue, but we got to provide some protection. There's talk about double tracking UTA for their front runner station. You already know the Union Pacific has 2 tracks there. It's a little cumbersome for that 150 feet there. So one of the things that we've looked at, and we submitted at least a project on to look at, is to see if we can tunnel under the tracks or bridge over. We won't know how that comes out until Union Pacific gets involved, but here's the point. If we want to get the residents on the west side to have a much easier access to the train station, then we think by tunneling or putting a bridge over the tracks from one side of the track to the other, it's 150 feet. I think we can provide a better safety net, and more importantly, I think we get much more people using it. So we submitted a proposal for consideration under the UDOT TIF first and last mile. It's running through the process. We're not sure where it's at this moment. We just recognize the fact is that we're just kind of moving on a previous conversation that we had. If you have any questions about it, please let us know. We can certainly answer that. But a lot of the information you'd like to know is in that packet I sent you.
I'd prefer to go over where they've done in several other locations,
Yeah.
just because under creates, having a couple 100-foot tunnel creates all kinds of problems. Graffiti, homelessness, people being accosted in a tunnel. I'd much
there are
rather
some
go
issues.
over.
I have a question on that. So how does, Roy City doesn't pay for this specifically?
Well, it could.
Oh,
It could have, there could be a portion. It wouldn't be a full expense, but there could be a 70-30 split on the cost.
oh, okay.
That's correct.
And who does the maintenance then? I'm assuming us. So is it easier to maintain over than under, or?
Well, I think that has to be worked out, but once it, and you bring good points, Sophie, once it gets tied to the municipality, more possibly the municipality had to be responsible to maintain it.
So would it be our choice to either
Do we
go
get a
over or
say?
under?
I mean, a feasibility study would
Right.
say the cost of what is more
I
beneficial.
mean, I think for all the reasons
Hmm.
Joe said over, because I just think unders, I wouldn't want to walk through there.
Especially at night or, yeah.
Trying to find another location that they do go under their railroad tracks is nearly impossible.
Yeah, and then
usually they're pretty old.
Yeah.
You don't see it anymore.
At what point, as I say, because jurisdictionally speaking, UTA has their own police force too, but we still patrol? We still, okay.
Yeah. It's in the feasibility looking at stage. It certainly will require more information as we get closer, Sophie, because your points are right on. It just we're trying to find a safe way by which we can move the pedestrians. Remember, this is a pedestrian only, whether you're riding bikes or walking, to try to get the people on the west side safely over to the east side. And right now, it's just not easy, to be honest with you. So we'll look at it, more information to come, but just recognize we want to make sure you're aware of it. You okay with that? Okay. City manager and council report. Matt?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of things for you tonight. We did have the tree lighting ceremony. Thank you for everybody that participated. Also, big thank you to all the staff, mainly Public Works and Park and Recreation, that did do the lights. Appreciate you, Mayor, saying those nice comments during the ceremony as well to the staff. But also had the opportunity to go to the gingerbread contest. They had 35 entries. They gave out awards. If you missed that, hopefully next year, you can go to that. They did a very good job with the Arts Council.
That's really good.
Also with the holiday lights, nominations for the contest that we're holding is due on December 14th. We are going to make the announcement on December 19th. So that means during that weekend, we'll have to get some judges to go around and let us know who you want to nominate for the top 3 places.
So we'll be given on the 14th, the top, how many do we have to choose from? I mean,
Right now, we have about 12 entries so far.
okay.
So we'll create a map like we have done in the past on the 14th and divvy it out.
Can I make a suggestion on the map? Will you put the address by each one on the map?
So you
I
can
mean,
click on it?
so you can
Probably don't
just,
use MapQuest.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Depends on how many entries we get.
Okay.
Some of them won't plan a route if you exceed a certain number, so.
Okay.
I can list
I've
them
tried to get
however you
MapQuest to
prefer.
come up on my phone and use it, and it doesn't work. Even in the app, it won't read your file to give me a route.
right.
Google.
But the map that you provided did actually work. I know where 56 is, I know where 6,000 is, and I just followed that path.
Yeah, it's just.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
you want those by Monday, you said? Or by when?
No, she'll have them to us by.
Yeah, so I'll give
December.
them to you on the 14th, and then we'll have to announce the winners on the 19th.
On the. city
Okay,
council
so
meeting,
we have
yeah.
to be, okay.
Okay. Anything else, Matt?
And then last but not least, we have had a lot of issues with the fiber internet going through the city, just with complaints coming into the city. I wanted to talk a little bit about that and provide some detail. A lot of people are thinking that it's just connects going through the city. They are actually almost done going through the city. We've been getting a lot more complaints with other companies coming through, primarily because the other company's right-of-ways or utility easements are in the rear setback of the individual home, meaning that they go in the backyards of people's houses. That has been causing a lot of stir. They do have a right to go back there. We have been in communications with them to try to get them to better notify the residents. We would like to see a 24-hour notification process to let them know that they're going to be there. There's nothing to hold them to that per se on the city because they have a right to go back there, but we are trying our best to get them to do that. They have said that they're going to be doing that. There's one contractor for that company. That contractor subcontracts to 15 other contractors, and so you're not dealing with just one individual as well. Some people might get a better experience than others.
Mainly what I've been hearing is they need to clean up after themselves too. They're leaving messes everywhere.
Are they
Kinda
going
like
to do
a
it in the
Texas
winter
tornado.
too? Or do they
My guess is yes. Public Works does receive the blue stakes for this, and they have been doing, the highest day that I think they had is 170 blue stakes for one day. So they're quite busy processing all these blue stakes as well. But my guess is yes, they will. The Connects, not the Connection magazine, but Connects did go through the winter and were able to work through last year as well. So my guess
I will
is
tell you,
that they will.
Council, and Matt certainly is kind in his approach. There's a lot of conversation on this, a lot of upset people.
Yeah,
The
I've
city's
gotten
been
those.
taking a lot of bangs on this one. Certainly, the mayor has been accused of a lot of things. I don't know the right answer. Some people, well, the last comment, which was pretty profound, simply says, why did you, mayor, and why did the city council authorize this? And the fact of the matter is, we didn't. They have,
Not our
there's an
choice.
easement, and they're using their easement. And certainly, for the record, you as a council, and we never proposed to you, to suggest is that we are partnerships in fiber optics in Roy. We welcome it. I'm excited about it, but we are not a partner with anybody, and we're not putting a tax on anybody to pay for that. So, but at the end of the day, though, as we've said many times, they're looking to hold someone accountable, and they're looking to elected people saying they're responsible for what's happening.
My
It's a
spiff
little
check
painful.
didn't clear the bank either, so I didn't get one.
You didn't get what? Well, all I'm saying is it's a hot topic. Brandon, Matt, if there's any way we can get 24-hour notice, okay, out to the public, and we can find creative ways to get that out there if we have to. But if there's any way we can do that, all I'm hearing from them is says, tell me when they're coming. The unfortunate things, they're digging on private property through the easement, and they didn't know anything about it, and they are furiated, okay, because of it.
When we blue stakes, do we notify the resident with whom we are blue staking their property?
Oh.
Just, why don't we give? I know. As I say, I mean, I know what it means,
paint their
but
curb.
yeah, I'm just thinking out loud.
I think
As I say,
that's a
'cause-
whole nother step of trying to notify people that we're blue staking in their house.
Yeah.
Brandon, I will suggest if one thing you can do for us would be is please, when they blue stake or they mark the sidewalks or the ground, whatever, I assume there's an organic paint they should be using?
Or are we still using that lead-based
Fine,
paint stuff?
because we want it to stay during the job, but, we don't want it to stay for years. So.
Okay, well, some of the allegations come from residents is they got marked property that their grandchildren will still see it, and I
We're only
always
one of the
thought-
blue stake companies, though.
Yeah.
Every utility blue stakes.
I know, they have to, but my point is, a lot of that is directed down through Public Works when they come through, and maybe there's ways we can get them to talk and says, please, or use organic paint that'll dissipate in a couple of weeks. My fear right now is some are accusing that they're using permanent, and they are furious about it, so. There's no good answer here except notification. That's the only thing I've seen out of this, okay? Okay, thank you. Council, I've got a few things, but do you have anything you want to share?
No, I just want to give a shout out to Brandon and Public Works and for the beautiful lights. I've gotten so many comments on them, and you guys do such a great job, and always hold my breath when you hit the button and they come on.
And then also,
But,
kudos
yeah.
to you guys for the water breaks that you guys have taken care of lately too. So,
yeah,
Hopefully there's been a lot of concerns about brown water, but
Yeah.
tell them to run their water, flush it. There's a lot of breaks going on.
Yeah.
As long
Tis
as
the
there's not a
season.
link between the broken water lines and people digging to put cable in.
Yeah, and that's, I guess if you guys could push it out too, if you see anybody accessing the fire hydrant, please reach out to Public Works because we think that that's part of the issue too.
Part of the problem. Okay.
Hydrants and causing water.
You say that, and I actually saw that at like 5600 and 1900 on the corner.
Does anybody
there.
have access to fire hydrants?
So it is possible to do that. You
Yeah.
come into Public Works and you have to know how to do it, and you pay for the water.
Rent the meter and pay
But
for the
it is
water.
common that some people come in and they
Yeah, 'cause
distill that water and then
yeah.
they shove it off. They turn it off really quickly, and it causes hammers and causes breaks.
Yeah, because well, I know, like I said, I saw it on 5600 and 1900 in a water truck. I was like,
So there's
Okay.
good possibility that could have been with the 5600, and I'm guessing that they have permission to do that and pay for the water.
Fair.
Okay. Anything from Roy High that you'd like to share with us from Youth Council?
Yeah, so this Thursday, we actually have a concert for Bardi Wranglers, and that's on the 7th at 7:30. Tickets range from $15 to $25, and then there we will have an auction where we auction off different baskets, like a hot cocoa basket, a movie basket, as well as a baking kit. We also do wreaths. So all that donation goes to Sub for Santa, which will help families in need. So come support, buy your ticket, and yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. Anything else, Council? Okay, let me share just a couple of things you don't mind. If you don't mind, 14th of December, mark that on your calendar. We do have an opportunity to feed the seniors in the Hope Center. I believe that one is at 1 o'clock. So if you can join us, that's always a lot of fun. We're only there for about a half an hour. We do appreciate the law enforcement, the fire department when they show up. To be honest with you, the seniors love it. A lot of times, Sophie, you know, we're kind of back in the back, kind of shoveling food, but we let the dressed officers and firefighters get out in front, and they really, really like that. So if we can do that again, certainly consider that on the 14th. On the 11th of December, Matt, Brody, and I have a meeting with UTA. We're going to talk about the train station. We'll give you an update on what happens and what's going to be that, but we need to talk about what's going to go on the train station, so I'll give you a heads up on that. This Wednesday, which I believe is I think it's tomorrow or next day, the 7th of December, we're meeting with the UDOT director, Region 1 director, Matt, Brody, and I. We're going to be talking specifically about 3500. Remember, you talked at one time, says, is there something we might be able to do to expedite the widening of 3500? We're going to have that conversation. We're also going to talk about 4000. We've got to find a way to get the process of making the improvements on 4000 on the tracks. We're responsible for the road, but the tracks become a little problematic. I think we got some funding, there's some effort, but there's some delays under the policy. I think if we're 500 feet from those tracks, it has to go through a special process. Is that a fair statement, Brandon?
Yeah, we have to reach out to
UP has to allow that.
We're in talks with the railroad right now, so we're
Okay.
looking at that. Process has started.
Yeah, we just have to, it's a terrible road condition. We got to find a solution to fix 4,000 right there at that train. So we're going to have that conversation there. On December 13th, Hill Air Force Base is going to be out doing their indoor air sampling program again. Council, there are 100 residential units in Roy that they can't get into. And I'm telling you, okay, and I'm passionate about this, there's a chemical plume that came out of Hillfield, okay, decades ago, that is still under the south side of Roy. And they have to basically deal with it's a toxin. It's also it's been known to cause cancer. It's permeating, okay, the ground, and we've got to make sure it's not getting into people's homes. And so at no cost, Air Force will come in and we'll put air samplers in there, and if they detect it, they will bring the equipment in and they will remove that vapor from that house at no cost. And if it takes 10 years, it'll be for 10 years. What frustrates me, Council, and I hope people will listen, is there's 100 residents who have chosen not to allow the Air Force to come in and do that. Now this year, which I'm kind of excited, and Brandon, I think your Public Works team is going to be helping them when they start on the thing. But this year they're saying this, They won't even come into the house if they'll simply take the equipment and let them place it in their house to check it to verify that there is not going to be vapor coming into that house, so be it. Perfect. But at least check it. They're going to try again to get those 100 houses to get them signed up. We'll see how far it goes.
Do they do this twice a year? Like
They
we
do it
just-
once a year, and they have to do it during the winter because, interesting enough, the cap, usually the snow cap that comes on top of the ground, seals the ground, and the best way for the vapor to escape under that plume is up through the basements and the floor space of the house.
So is it something they have to leave and then come back and check, or is that
Come
an
back in
instant
30
thing?
days.
In 30 days.
And they'll check it. If it's there, they'll detect it, and they will come in and fix it. If it's
And
not
it's
there,
not spy equipment.
it's not spy equipment. But if it's not there, then they tell the people, you don't have no problem. It's that certificate of knowing that it's okay. That's comfort. If you question or don't know, please look at the website. Brittany has been very good about keeping this particular issue about the chemical plume on the city's website, and we update it all the time. There's a map under there, and you can see exactly where it is, okay? And they're reaching out. It's actually on the website if you want to see the details, but they're going to be running through the city. They've lined up 5 or 6 people from Public Works, it looks like, Brandon, and they're going to be going through the city, knocking on doors on December 13th, asking people to sign up so they can test their house. And only those people who basically have not signed up. It's just unfortunate, but it is what it is. Real quick, I'm just going to talk about ramp grant requests. I'll give you some dates. Matt, I'd like you to follow up if you would. Ramp grant request due dates for majors and regulars are January 12th. We have to have our ramp grants in to the county, and for easy grants, it has to be in by March 22nd. So we're watching those days. Matt, do you want to take that one step further?
Add just a little bit to this. In the next city council meeting, we wanted to hurry and go over the ramp grants. We did talk about in the budget process to do something at the aquatic center, the toy, because we have the liner as a match. There's a couple of ideas we're throwing around, but also just wanted to make sure we're on line with the Arts Council and everything like that to make sure everything gets processed timely. So
You and I have to work that.
be thinking about that for next city council meeting, please.
Perfect. Thank you, Matt. Last comment, I'm off the table. Liaison appointments. Every year, under statute, I have to basically send out a request to you that says what a liaison appointment you would like to be on. So I'll send you a worksheet. I'd like to get that worked out and back to me by the 20th of December so I can get this thing pretty well set in motion. I need to present that to you on the 2nd of January for your review and consent vote, okay? So just look for it. I'll send it to you personally so that you can get that information and send it back to me personally, and then I can try to capsulate that into a plan going forward into 2024. That's all I have.
Make a motion to adjourn.
And Joe has asked to adjourn,
I'll second it.
and Ann
But
has
we do
given a
have a
second.
meeting after this.
We do. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None.
And a
We are
break.
adjourned. Please be back at 8 o'clock. We'll get the RDA board meeting done. Thank you. And thank you for joining us tonight.
Stand up. Oh, yeah. Good idea. Very good, sir. How are you? Good. How are you? That's free meeting. Almost 40 years ago. Weren't included on the CC, like, you don't know about it, so I. We doing?
discussion, didn't get any public feedback. How you doing? There's no public comment. There would have been a chance for me to offer my feedback. Email would be extreme. Commission without knowing who's even on it. Like, really frustrating because I have comments. So sounds like you have your chance to go with the mortgage. Well, if but again, it comes back to, I know the flow of what the planning commission does. I can't offer short of me volunteering to be on the planning commission.
But what can you say? Yeah, I'll take that, right? If I have my
No, I understand. So
civil life, system of government is not one. We don't want the traffic commission to get scared of Kevin Holmes. Something they can't say no to.
my view is just like by choice. That's from my understanding, after talking with Dan before. And the planning commission wanted to. Whatever I feel here in Roy is, it is squelched. So my perception is public feedback is not appreciated. So, and it's limited to the planning commission. They don't need to be scared of me, they don't need to be scared of me.
You have, you personally have. Well, like, let me tell you, so just don't do that, okay?
Like, Nina Moore is like, what? Nina Moore is just, they had.
I understand
the governor and the lieutenant governor. I invited them.
There will be a public
Thanks for the
hearing.
invite. Do you have a cool picture?
council members, changes and changes. I would offer my citizen. Sometimes late. On one occasion, that I was offering,
But I could not place who
proposing
he was like the
a
entire
different
time, and
meeting.
then it didn't dawn on me until like 2/3. It's like,
And I told him, you know what? I will occasion to offer feedback. Unconstant. Unconstant. Unconstant.
Okay, Brody, let's go ahead and we'll get started. Want to welcome everybody out, Kevin. Want to welcome everybody out to the Roy City RDA board meeting. Well, we're welcoming you. At least we can do that. Want to recognize that we have board member Jackson with us tonight, board member Wilson with us tonight, board member Joe Paul, board member Skadden, and board member Sophie Paul with us tonight. Board members, we do have some consent items, specifically the approval of some RDA board meetings, both in February and June and October. Any comments or questions before I ask for an approval? I've sent some information for corrections to Brittany. She's made those adjustments to that. So if there's no comments, if whoever would like to motion to approve, to also include the proposed adjustments that have been provided.
Motion to approve with the proposed adjustments by the mayor.
Okay, got a motion to approve. Thank you, Randy. Second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Diane, thank you. We're going to do a, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. Any opposed? Hearing none? Okay, the consent items are approved. Thank you. Now we have one action item, and to work through the action item, we're going to turn first over to Brody. He'll talk about that, then I need to go into a public meeting. So please, Brody?
Yes. Thank you, board members. So just kind of at the outset, we got a little presentation. You've seen this presentation, you've seen these slides before. Just for point of clarity, what we're doing tonight is amending the CRA budget for the Southeast 1900 project area. This, as you all know, you approved, was it last month? And this is the one that went through all the other taxing entities, and they have approved it. The reason we have to do this is the budget was originally prepared by Randy, I believe in 2019, a proposed budget for this area. When we went to the entities, Rob put together a proposed budget using figures from 2023. So this is an updated budget of the project area. It has to be adopted, and it has to be adopted with sufficient notice for the public hearing, which comes next. So we'll go through this. Here's the map of the project area. I think we're all very familiar with it. Essentially the area on the east side of 1900, surrounding Harmons up and down north and south. These are kind of some of the projections for that whole area. And again, this is a little bit why we adjusted our budget. Right now, the estimated tax in that area is about $49 million. We're hoping at the end of the project to create an additional $232 million of taxable value in that area. So these are the assumptions of basically what the tax base is right now and what it will be in 20 years. You can see each entity, what the growth is going to be. This is the participation, and this also affected the budget. We kind of put this together with some assumptions, and Rob, in some abundance of caution, actually used some numbers that were a little bit lower in some of the items that we talked about, because this 70% for 20 years is above and beyond the standards that both the county and the school district have, which are the main players. But we were able to educate them on why the 20 years of 70% was needed for this area, and what the hopeful plans in that area will be, and quite frankly what it should do to affect Royce City as a whole. So we were able to capture that 70% for 20 years from every entity involved. They're on that there, which is a good thing for our projected budget. Again, I always put this in there for TIF, anything we talk about. We are not taking taxes from anybody. What we're doing is the RDA board is going to capture any tax growth, property tax growth from that area, and then 70% of that gets passed to us, 30% goes on to the entities, and we use that for development purposes within that area. So this is just assumptions and projections, essentially, of what each individual entity will receive year to year and through the scope of the project, through the growth. Next one, thanks. And then these are the uses. You guys seen this before, but 87% of our budget will be used for redevelopment activities. That definition is huge. It gives, quite frankly, this board wide latitude to help facilitate projects, tear down buildings, improve infrastructure, create incentives. We have a wide range of tools to help foster development in that area. 10% of that, this is a new legislative change, 10% of that must be used for affordable housing options. We have some plans to do that as well, and then there's some administrative funds that go with essentially managing this and working it. This is the reason for the TIF. I got some questions from multiple people on this. This is essentially the reason for TIF. This is what we told the other taxing entities when we present it to this board. This is why it exists. The market constraints are basically if somebody has a project that's going to create, if they're going to do a big project, but it only pencils out with help from the RDA board, you guys have the ability to help that, whether that be through loans, paybacks. There's a bunch of different things that we'll get into on project specific, but there's money in there. Infrastructure is a big one. This is just one. So that whole projected area built out in 20 years to handle the type of development in that area, it's an estimation that you're going to need around 1,200 parking stalls. So that
And that's not just one project, that's the whole area.
7 acres.
Correct.
Yeah,
Yes.
because
So
some
that we're
people have
talking-
said 1,200 parking stalls for one unit?
No, that's for that whole area.
And then when I went down this rabbit hole too, what you find is that typically you can get 144 parking standard stalls out of an acre of land. So when you extrapolate that 36 million across the entire development area, we're giving up 8 acres, and that when you roll back the upside,
yes,
that's basically the amount that is going to go that there's going to be a sunk cost of that to accommodate for.
And really what it is to facilitate
Yes.
growth, you need structures.
Bingo.
And that's what that is. Quite frankly, the $30,000, who knows what's going to happen in the next 6 months, but that's low.
Yeah.
So when we ask for these entities and we ask for the city, as the city council members, when we ask the city to participate at 20% or 70% for 20 years, these are some of the reasons, right? We didn't even factor in infrastructure improvements and demolition of old buildings, that kind of thing. And you can see a projected need of $43.2 million, which is low. The total TIF increment is supposed to be around 25 million. So, I mean, we're not even asking for everything. Our ask was very reasonable, and it does, and I'm not saying 25 million is nothing, but to develop this and make this the best development that it can be, there's a substantial need in the development arena to facilitate infrastructure, parking, and those type of things. So that's our little presentation. The budget was given to you guys. You've seen it before. It's basically what you approved when you created the project. We have to formally approve this and alter it, and then this will go with the interlocal agreements to every entity as part of our agreement, as this is our budget that we're working off right now.
Okay,
so
thank you. With that, council, I'm going to go ahead and go into a public hearing. Therefore, I need a motion to approve a public hearing.
So moved.
Diane, thank you. Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
That was Joe. Thank you. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we're now in a public hearing. Any comments you'd like to share with us, please come up to the mic and give us your name and address.
Come on, Kevin.
Go for Kevin.
Still have the same address?
My name is Kevin Homer. I live at 5398 South, 4000 West here
Thanks,
in Roy.
Kevin.
I will do my very best to say something positive. Now, am I correct in understanding that this RDA area is from Riverdale Road south to 1900?
A little bit farther south,
Okay,
like to
a little bit
5700.
farther.
Just.
And in this
East side of the road.
East side. And would that affect the project that they're planning for a mixed-use development there south of Harmons?
Yes.
It would.
Okay. On a positive note, I'm very excited about that development. I want to see what's going to happen. I really like that. I'm not fond of public funds being used for private entities. I won't say any more, but the project itself, I'm excited for it, and I hope we see it soon.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Anybody else would like to share a thought?
Oh, Glenda.
All right. It's the internet legend.
Glenda?
Flesh.
In the
Name and address?
More, 2088 West, 3825 South. I'm fine with this. I'm looking forward to the development, but I would like to see information about the RDA and the CRAs on the website, please. There's a section for RDA, but it's empty. I'd just like to see more stuff on there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Would be a lot easier to explain it to people if there was something to point them to. Not
Okay.
that Brody needs an extra assignment, but.
Don't see any more public, so I'm going to assume nobody's going to talk, so therefore I need a motion to go out of a public hearing.
So moved.
Thank you, Sophie.
Nobody jump in all at once. I'll second.
Thank you, Randy. Okay, all in favor of going out of a public hearing?
Aye.
Aye.
Did I get
Yeah, that's
everybody?
I was just
Perfect, okay. Now we have a resolution 23-8. Board members, comments, thoughts relative to this particular resolution?
Long time coming.
Very.
I've got a question in regards to the amendments. So in essence, what you're saying is the document hasn't changed, the numbers haven't changed from what we reviewed. We just had to give it time to make the final approval.
Correct, yeah,
Okay.
as we were, basically what we wanted to do, because the original one that was approved, again, 2018, 2019, the financial numbers have changed so much because of multiple factors. But we didn't want to formally adopt a budget and then have to re-adopt it based on essentially, not to call them out, but what the county and the school district decided, because their participation rate, I mean, the school district alone, I mean, could have essentially affected 40% of this budget. So the difference between what we received from them and what their standard is, again, is about I think it was like a 38% increase. So we essentially told everybody, this is our proposed budget with what we're asking. And then now that we know that we got the approvals, we needed to formalize it. And then anytime with the budget approval process, it requires the notice. So we had to notice it up, give it time, and then approve it in this meeting.
Okay, and then I had a question in regards to, I understand sometimes these can kind of close early. And I was just wondering if you could just review, instead of 20 years, sometimes things will close out. Is that just if we get a lot more of the tax revenue, the TIF, than we expect? Or could you just kind of review
Yeah,
that
so
for us,
it's a
please?
20-year term, and it's capped a couple of different ways. Basically, the speed of development, I know that might be an oxymoron, would facilitate that. But all of the interlocal agreements, including with Royce City, there's a cap amount. So if we get a ton of development in 5 years, and then in 12 years, we capture the maximum tax amount, then it would sunset and it would be done.
Thank you.
Okay. Other comments, questions, board members?
I make a motion, we approve Resolution 23-8 of the Royce City Redevelopment Agency adopting the amended project area budget for the 1900 Southeast Community Reinvestment Project area.
Okay, I have a motion then to approve Resolution 23-8. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
And thank you. Okay. This is a roll call vote. Brittany?
Board Member Scadden.
Aye.
Board Member Joe Paul.
Aye.
Board Member Wilson.
Aye.
Board Member Sophie Paul.
Aye.
Board Member Jackson.
Aye.
Okay. Board, we just approved Resolution 23-8. Thank you for that. We have no other further business, so therefore do I have a motion then to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Randy, did I hear you say that first?
Yes, I did. I beat Joe.
And the second is?
Joe. We'll give Joe credit.
I have a motion to adjourn first and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we are adjourned. Thank you. It's been a busy